glad you made it. I'm glad you made it safely. Yeah.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Lammersville Unified School Board to order at 7:08. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if I could have the Wickland ASB President lead us, appreciate it. Roll call.
Matthew Balzerini.
Here.
Colin Clements.
Here.
Sharon Lampel.
Here.
Shane Nielsen.
Here.
David Pombo.
Here.
Tessa Puchai.
Here.
Item 4, administer the oath of office to Mr. Colin Clements. Repeat after me. I
Colin Clements,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and that I take this obligation freely
and I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservations or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
So, congratulations. Annual reorganization of governing board officers. I'd like to call for nominations.
I would like to nominate Trustee Balzerini as president.
Second. Any other nominations?
We have to nominate a clerk.
We do all the nominations before we vote?
Yeah.
Oh,
Not one at a time.
I thought it was one of.
That's the one at a time. Okay, then no, that's it.
I would like to nominate Mr. Pombo to be clerk.
Second?
This time I call for a vote for board president. All in favor of trustee Balzerini?
Aye.
Opposed? Trustee Balzerini is the new board president. Congratulations. Now I call for a vote for board clerk. All in favor of Mr. Pombo as board clerk?
Aye.
Opposed? I am the new board clerk. And now we get up and play musical chairs, right?
It's actually an easy musical chair.
We just have to move two.
You just slide the-
Yeah, just slide the bottom piece.
coordinated. Trade you. Hand me mine. Oh, thank you. And now I'd have to learn to shut up for a change.
We have to learn how to do that?
All right, this time, nomination for representative to county committee of district representation. And in the past, we've had two. I'm sure we can continue with that. I'll nominate Mr. Pombo.
I'll second.
And who else was on it last year?
I did also.
Sorry. Are you interested in
Sure.
remaining on that committee?
Sure, I will.
Okay, then I will nominate Mr. Belzerini.
Second?
We can just do both in one swoop. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And also, item G is consider approval of appointing Dr. Kirk Nicholas as secretary of the board.
I move to appoint Kirk Nicholas as secretary of the board.
Second?
Any further discussion? You've been doing a great job.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval and/or corrections of the agenda?
There are none.
I move we approve the agenda.
I'll second. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Receiving a public comment. I have two cards, and they both appear to be for items that are later in the agenda. For the folks that have them in, do you want to wait? Okay, very good. Moving on, consent items for consideration. We got a few here. A is the approval of governing board minutes from November 5th. Budget revisions and warrants. Approval of 6 new hires. Acceptance of 3 different donations, $1,000 from Questa ASB to Altamont ASB, 50 footballs from Mountain House Flag Football, $300 from Suni Kumar and Harmeet Kaur, $950 from Karman Rashid towards the Wickland Science Olympiad program. And then item E is acceptance of 2 resignations. Does anyone on the board like to remove any of those for discussion, or we can approve them all as one?
I move we approve the entire consent agenda.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in
I'd like-
favor? Oh,
Well, I would like to thank the donors for helping out our schools.
And Questa for helping out Altamont. I'm sure they appreciate it.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carry. District Administrative Report, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Nicholas?
I have 2 reports tonight, one brief one, and then we have a short presentation and update on our Mountain House High School app. An article from EdSource was released on the 3rd of this month with, I thought, some interesting statements about the upcoming SBAC, a Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium assessment, which will replace the California Standards Test. And I wrote down 3 of the, I thought, pertinent lines from the opening segment of that, which says, with the new SBAC, they can't say what it will look like. The reporting system has moving parts, and the API score, which we've been living off of, is going to be recalibrated. But what they can say is that they won't judge schools and districts as the old system did in No Child Left Behind. So we're moving into a new frontier with the new assessment, and I wanted to report to the board some of the results of the work of our staff, all the way from our district and site administrators down to our classrooms, because we are preparing for this new frontier. So what we know about the SBAC assessment is it's a computer adaptive test. That means kids get on, they are asked a question, they answer the question. As they answer them, they get progressively more difficult. And if they start to miss questions, it gets progressively less difficult. And in the end, it locks in on a number that identifies how the child did. We, as a district, adopted a computer adaptive test. So by the time the April testing rolls around, our children in our district, grades 3 through 8, who will take the SBAC, will have had 5 different experiences with a computer adaptive test. So when people ask me, are you preparing kids for the SBAC, on the computer adaptive part, we can say absolutely, definitively, yes. Are they perfectly aligned? No. But it is an experience where our kids are being prepared. Second, in the units of study that are being designed by teachers in our districts to prepare for the curricular transition to Common Core, the strongest feedback we're getting on the rollout of those is that the performance tasks designed by the students, another component of SBAC, are the strength of the units of study, that students are more engaged, students are learning, students are being challenged. So again, the 2 components of the SBAC test are a computer adaptive part and a performance task part. So when people ask me, how are you preparing for the SBAC, what we can say as a community is our students are being given challenging performance tasks that are going to prepare them with experiences for this new assessment model. And finally, this morning, our administrative team, and that includes about 15 site administrators, APs, and principals, district office folks from myself, assistant soup, directors, and the like, we break up into teams and we walk classrooms. What we can say in the focus of our walks, which has been about 18 months now, is are we telling the kids what they're going to learn? Is what we're telling them tied to the new standards? And are the kids able to know what they're learning in the moment that they're learning? We can say that definitively there's been a significant shift in instruction in our classrooms, and it's consistent across school sites. So kudos to our site administrators, our teachers, and all of the work that's being done for the Common Core, because the test is still vague to us, but we know what the best practices are, and all the district staff are working very hard. So I can say to our board that, are we preparing our kids for the SBAC? To the best of our ability, I can say yes. Now, I'd like to introduce Antapia's Padu Balamani, who is going to present an overview and an update on the Antapia app that's been developed through the support of Cisco Corporation and Padu's company, Antapia.
Thank you, Dr. Nicholas. Board, as soon as it comes up. So we already have an app for the Mountain House High School in the App Store, both Google and Apple, that everyone can download and see and give us feedback on how it works. What we have done, at least for this time, is what else we have added to the app that is already existing on the App Store. So we have now Aries and Canvas. We have Canvas integration in the App Store. Now we can also do Aries integration. So you can get the information about, say, attendance in the app, or course assignments that is due on the app, the grades that has been put in by the teachers, all through the app itself in a secure, and only the information that you need to know will come in the app. The next one is what I'm going to show. This is the district app. So this is the next version. So initially we had only, it keeps going away. Okay. Yeah. So this is the new version of the app that you can see. This is an iPhone version. What we have done is, in addition to all the previous ones, we also have added all the schools of Lammersville Unified. So every school is now listed here. So as a parent, you just download that, and depending upon where your kid is, so let's say the kid is in Bethany, you just need to click on that, and all the Bethany information will come up in the app. Now, if your kid is in more than one school, of course, you can go and say change to a different school and get that particular information. So all the information that you need, including courses, assignments, upcoming events, again, still data is being fed into the system, and hopefully by another 2-3 days, this will be live in the system. So this is one part of the district app. Again, there's a lot more things. So you also have a capability to subscribe So all the notification that you want to send to the parents, parents can say that what all schools that they want to. So here, just a simple selection and save. The final one that I do want to talk about is the fundraising aspect. Let me just click on this one. So we have adding a capability to help the schools and the parents to fundraise without doing any extra work. Okay, so what we have done is we have created a platform. Again, this is only the beginning aspect of it. We have provided a website. Again, this is not yet approved. This is still being cleared out. We are testing that. Parents, all they need to do is that go to that particular place, select the school, and there's a list of companies there. Okay, so this is the website. At the top, you can see the schools that are listed here. So all the schools, so the parents can just select the school, change the school, and choose whichever organization that you want. Let's say you want to buy a Target. All they need to do is that click on it and then continue to do the shopping. There's nothing else you need to do. So we have Target, Walmart, Amazon, all the big retailers right there. So once you finish the shopping, a percentage of it goes to the school. We are putting more information of exactly what it is because it varies. If you buy electronics, the percentage is a little higher. If you buy books or dresses, it's a little bit lower. So it depends upon what you buy. Gift cards, its percentage is higher. So depending upon what you buy, the percentage differs. But that's a starting point. Again, the same thing is also available on your web. So if you download your app, 1 second. The same thing is also available in the app. Okay.
Translation to that was, I really like this.
Okay, so it's, yeah. Okay, so each of the app also has a link called as fundraise. So you just click on it, and you, depending upon the school that you have selected, the same page comes up here, and it is already here, but it's kind of taking a little bit time to come up there. You just have to click on it, and you continue to do the shopping the same way. Again, this is just the starting, so we are also on putting up a platform where you can bring in local vendors, the doctors, auto body shops, different vendors, and as you walk along with your mobile phone, it can show the list of participating vendors. And if you go there and you do normal business there, a percentage of it, as agreed between the school and the vendor, goes to the school. So again, the aim is to bring in fundraising in a simpler fashion, non-disruptive, easy to consume particular fashion. So those are the two things, the district-wide and the fundraising aspect. Again, we are testing on the fundraising part. As soon as you approve, we can put that on the web, on the App Store. So those are the two updates that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item B is the enrollment report.
So I'm proud to say that in this latest enrollment report, we have officially crossed the 3,500 student threshold. We have 3,503 students.
And item C is the district maintenance and operations report. Alvina Kaiser.
A request was made to provide a facility update.
It's also bent away from you.
And so I had the Director of Maintenance Operations, James Nolan, kind of take a review of the sites. We are required to fill out evaluation instruments every year for the auditors, and also that documentation is also for the SARC report card. There are 3 sources of funds that we have been spending in years past. The district is required to normally put 3% aside, but when we had the budget issues, we were allowed to bring down our expenditures to 1% towards maintenance, and so every district in California was able to do the same thing, but they are requiring that we restore the 3% requirement in 2015-16. Deferred maintenance, we had HVAC repairs. The state used to give us a match. They were providing $38,000. We were putting in $38,000. Last year, they eliminated providing that, rolled it into LCFF. There was a period of time they said you didn't even have to use that match. You could use it towards salaries. So when we were dealing with the budget cuts, we were using those matches towards salaries to keep people employed. And then this year, this last couple of years, we've been able to restore that. I wanted to go ahead and list, I'm not going to go through all these amounts. This is the amount of expenditures that we've been putting into these programs over the last couple of years. As you can see, in the year 2015-16, we're estimated to be spending $844,000 on maintenance needs in the district. And I have in the blue sections the types of projects under those expenses. Of course, if you don't meet those routine maintenance, then they fall into a deferred maintenance category. But once we identify, I have a sheet here for you that the Director of Maintenance prepared. It's a working copy of projects identified. We also have to take into consideration following a useful life that the state allows us to replace a playground, replace carpet, electrical plumbing work, carpet. Wickland, I know, was one of the ones that we had in a rotation. Wickland is our oldest school. We need to start collecting some quotes on pavement replacement for both Lammersville and Wickland. The fields are being worked at right now at Wickland. We have gopher control issues. We're trying to get a handle on those gophers. There's another treatment happening over winter break, and once they're
Eradicated.
I guess so, eradicated or under a point where we can fill the holes and fix the sprinklers and everything else that we've had going on over there. But they need to get a handle on those gophers before they start digging up what we repair. This, again, the green sheet you have is just a working copy. It's constantly updated. We'll have to seek quotes on some of these. Some of these will have to be competitively bid because they will go over the threshold.
I agree that we have to get a handle on the gophers. When I was at the Lammersville Fall Carnival, I was standing in the field and I looked down and there was a little face looking at me. So.
Yes, we're trying to make, we have a ongoing gopher control now.
But we have hired somebody who's on a monthly basis going after them across their campuses, in particular at Wickland, which was the significant problem, but they're going after it until they're dead.
Is it Bill Murray?
Do we have a problem with geese like the schools in the East Bay?
I haven't heard anything about the geese. Now, raccoons,
Raccoons, yes.
yes, but not the gophers. So we also have been, someone to take care of the raccoons as well.
Alvina, I'd like to commend you on keeping something in these accounts. I know just from other school districts, they've depleted their reserves completely, and at least we have something to start with. It's not enough, and visiting Wickland for a couple different events recently, I mean, the school's 10 years old. It needs
Yes.
work.
Yes.
It needs paint. It needs, it needs some attention. So at least we have somewhere to start, but we need to, keep working on these accounts.
I agree.
Okay, item D is a special education report. Mrs. Corona.
Good evening, Governing Board, Mr. President, Dr. Nicholas. Okay, the purpose of my presentation today is to give you an update of the Special Education Improvement Plan. During the analysis of the Special Education Department, there were 6 areas of concern that were identified. Today, I will be giving you an update of on 3 of the 6 areas that were identified. One of the areas identified is the pre-referral process. How are we targeting this area of concern to improve it? We have been providing the professional development on behavior intervention strategies, RTI implementation, Ed Code law, and policies. And another area of target, starting in January, will be the teacher collaboration time between general education staff and special education staff. On this slide, you will see the over-identification pie chart is in comparison between 2013 and 2014. So, due to the successful implementation of the improvement plan, we are seeing a decrease of teacher referral on student identification for special education based on 30%. Now, the NPA aid and District 1-on-1 aid. In the past, the district has contracted with NPA to provide services to our students. The goal of our district is to provide a high-quality education to all of our students using all of the resources within our school district. So based on the improvement plan that is in place, it's being implemented, we have seen a reduction of NPA 1-on-1 aids. And what that means is we have either terminated the contract based on the recommendation of the IEP team because we are able to supplant those needs with district services. Another area is the District 1-on-1 aid. We have decreased that as well based on the RTI interventions. It has been determined based on the IEP meeting that one-to-one is not necessary for students. And we're talking about on an as-needed basis. So there has been a reduction. We're providing training, we're providing support, and like I said, our next focus area will be the teacher collaboration time between general education and special education staff. That concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you for keeping us updated.
Item E, fundraiser, ASB Foundation PTA profit report. Dr. Gill.
Good evening, Governing Board, Mr. President, and Dr. Nicholas. In the past few months, we have been looking at fundraisers, specifically hard sale fundraisers. There have been some concerns that came from staff members, parents, and so on regarding hard sale fundraisers. So we did a preview of comparison and preview of all of the school sites, what they have made so far in this school year and previous school years in their fundraisers in ASB and their foundations or PTA, and also looked at the hard sale fundraisers. As you can see, Ultima actually did not do any hard sale fundraisers, but this is the Ultima's amounts, what they have done so far, and future projections. Bethany, the red font Great American Sale fundraisers was the hard sale fundraiser, and as you can see, the profit is about $1,000 both years, approximately, as compared to the other fundraisers. And some of these fundraisers are ongoing, such as Jamba Juice, those kind of fundraisers are ongoing fundraisers. Lammersville School did not do any hard sale fundraisers, and this is their approximate. Some of them are ongoing, and some of them are one-time fundraisers that they have done. And then Questra did not do any hard sale fundraisers this year. They did do one of the, which is Great American fundraiser this last school year. This year, it's not in their plan. They did not do one. And then Wickland did hard sale fundraiser, which is Great American fundraiser as well. I need to correct this amount. $439 actually is a gross amount. We don't have, it's part of the gross amount. The profit is going to be about 45% of it. So by the end, we are going to receive the profit next week. So it's going to be approximately $1,800 or so. so we can compare 1,800 as compared to the other fundraisers as well. But some of the other fundraisers, such as CJF, is an ongoing fundraiser throughout the school year. So our analysis based on this is that fundraisers such as Great American Fundraisers provide less profit as compared to Turkey Trot, Fun Run, and some of the other fundraisers. I do want to point out something for hard sale fundraisers. Some of these fundraisers not only take the instructional time away from the classroom, but they also ask students to give out their relatives or friends' personal information. Sometimes there's a booklet they have to fill. They have to provide 9 or 10 or whatever number addresses. People don't feel comfortable with that. So based on our profit report, our analysis, our recommendation is that we suggest that schools do other kind of fundraisers as in lieu of hard sale fundraisers. Such as we haven't approved that one yet. We're going to bring it to the governing board, but such as the app, that might be a great fundraiser to do, but that's something we're going to bring to the board in the future to see if we want to approve that and move forward with that.
So how are we defining a hard sale fundraiser? So what would be the difference between the Great American one that there was a lot of comments about versus the mixed bag one?
So in hard sale, the big thing is three big major things. One, students are invited to an assembly, taking instructional time away. Second, they are being told, if you sell this much, you're going to receive these toys. And it's like it's like giving them incentives for selling so many. The other fundraisers mostly don't have that unless a foundation or ASB by themselves say, okay, if you sell this much, we might give you a gift card or something, but does not come from the company. And thirdly, in hard sell fundraiser, mostly they're looking for contact information of other people so they can market. So students ultimately end up providing addresses, email addresses, phone numbers, and such information of their relatives and so on, which people don't feel comfortable with.
And that mixed bag one doesn't do that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because I've never used that one, so I'm not sure. That's
Yeah,
why I'm
not that
asking.
I'm aware of. There is no, people just buy the mixed bags and that's it. There's no booklet that comes with it, to my knowledge.
So the hard sale is pretty much the one where students get prizes?
Correct.
Okay.
And those prizes come from the company, like you get this toy and that toy, that type of stuff.
I think it's not the prize part, it's the accumulated effect of, we're gonna do this big assembly, get people really jazzed up, and then you gotta go out and you gotta give us the contact information and sell product. It's really about turning kids into agents for the corporation and giving the contact information that the corporation sells out to other people. Prizes in itself isn't a disqualifier. It's really the complicated factor of how deep are they going to go into asking the kids to go to work.
I just think we're being very broad, and if we're going to say no hard sale, we need a very specific definition of what hard sale is. So that way we can say yes or no to a school when they come to us. Right now, I don't know exactly what fits in this category.
We can definitely find that.
And I think that's going to be one of the difficult things is, I think we all know what it is we don't want, but getting a definition of what it is that we don't want so that everybody knows what it is that we don't want is going to be the trick. Because I think if we're, as Trustee Lampel said, if we're too broad, we're going to have people say, well, that one fits the bill under these, broad brush strokes. So it's something we're going to have to take a hard look at before we make hard and fast rules about it, I think.
And all of these are coming to the administration before they even come to the board. I mean,
That's
you guys
correct.
have a pretty good idea what they
Correct.
are, right?
We can definitely define it and then make sure our sites follow those guidelines.
Speaking personally, I think the issue that we want to focus on isn't the prizes, it's class time.
It's class time.
Even the selling of personal data, I'm not at all comfortable with that, but I also know that, I have the choice not to give out my personal data, and I have the choice to tell my child she can't. But when they're taken out of classroom
Instructional
time,
time.
that to me, if they're missing class time it's got to be for an educational purpose.
That's
And
correct.
You have to
that's
understand,
my
when we do turkey trots and stuff like that, the teacher does spend some
I know, and
time
that's- you're exactly right.
taking
That's where you're
instructional
going.
time. It's not an assembly, it's done by the teacher in the
So it's-
classroom.
that-
So
you got some
that's why
slippery slopes there.
I'm saying
Absolutely.
we need to define very carefully.
Correct.
Because
But
we
we
don't
were,
wanna take the
we were
turkey
also
trot.
looking at, is it even worth doing those fundraisers? You know, if you're taking class time, you're doing all those type of things, and then you're making $1,000,
But
right?
if the class time is focused on the math of what they're doing, and, you know, there's a lot of math lessons that can be done on a turkey trot. It's PE.
Correct.
It's, you know, we have to be able to justify, but I think we need
That's correct.
specifics. Yeah.
We'll definitely bring that. Thank you. Any other questions?
No, I just want to mention, I think between administration and now with them coming to the board, I think we have enough checks and balances to make sure that, you know, we have a pretty good grasp of what these fundraisers are. I know, just looking at them, I know it's a pain for the sites to do this, but it's, I think at least until we kind of wrap our brain around what's going on here, it's a necessary step.
We will.
When it's the opportunity for the community to know, to hear, I mean, this is really what it is. It's not so much about just us, it's also for the community to say, okay, wait a minute, no, I don't want that too. It's in the board packet, they have an opportunity to see what it is and what it's for, and if they're not happy with it, they can come to us and say, we're not happy with that. And
Correct.
that's, I think, an important part of this, is that we're telling the parents out here and the residents out here, this is what we're doing and this is what they want to do. If you don't like it, this is your opportunity to tell us.
Correct. Yes.
And I will be the first one to make a motion that we'd never, ever do anything that gives out anyone's information. I don't need something in the mail. What magazine do you want to buy? None, okay? And that's one of the hard sell ones, where the kids get prizes. How many names can you give us, names and
And,
addresses? And in
un-
2014, that's dangerous.
And unfortunately, as Director Nielsen said, we can tell our children, we don't want to do that, but children have access to these things, and they can, you know, they can give the information,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gill. Governing board reports. Trustee Clemens?
Well, I attended the Altamont Carnival, or not a carnival, it was the Winter Festival, excuse me, which was a lot of fun. And that's about it for me right now.
Trustee Nielsen?
I brought a group of educators from Alameda to visit Mountain House High School on Monday, and I'm still closing their mouths from what they saw there. This is a group trying to implement an innovative program in an established elementary school and trying to do some flipped and blended, they're planning to do some flipped and blended learning in with their science program. And Principal Faubert was very generous with his time. He had an amazing PowerPoint presentation for them. All of their questions were easily answered, and they were so excited that I left without them. I had a meeting. I had to get back to work. I left them there, but they were in good hands with Ben. So I'd like to publicly thank Ben for giving of his time and sharing all of his knowledge with teachers from another district.
It's nice being able to show off.
Yes, it is very nice.
Trustee Pombo?
The only thing that I can recall that I did since our last meeting was I also attended the Altamont Winter Festival and had a good time. My kids had a good time. A couple of my grandkids had a good time, and we even walked away with some good stuff.
I wanted to, on the November 18th, I attended the Safety and Crisis Response Committee meeting. During that meeting, it was we set up for preliminary discussions about a drill that we were planning, which we held on the 8th. And it was, to see everyone out there doing their thing, it was pretty awesome. We set up a scenario where a maintenance truck drove through the campus, ran over a couple kids, hit a gas line. So it was just complete chaos. And we had volunteers, students, parents, staff come out. And we also had a representative from the CERT program, the Community Emergency Response Team, who provided training to many of our teachers. And this was the next step in that training, is to start to test the system and test our policies. And it was, I think it was an eye-opener for some of us. We definitely feel like we're prepared in some areas and have a lot of work to do in others. So special thanks to Dr. Gill for spearheading it, coordinating it, putting everything together. Denise Rizzo's not here. Tracy Press came out to cover the event, not knowing that I actually pulled her into the event and said, hey, you're the media. What would you do? And we pulled in our superintendent to be the PIO, and it was a really good drill. So I know there's some people here that were in there. Thank you very much for being there. And it was really good. Thank you. Governing board committee reports, facility use. I just will briefly say that we had our last meeting on the 19th. Trustee Nielsen and I and Alvina Kaiser, and we had our kind of final conversations to complete the handbook, which is on the agenda for tonight. So I will delay everything else until we get to that item. Action items. Item A, consider approval of first interim fiscal report.
I'm sure 3/4 of your board packet was the first interim report, which we jokingly stated it was a summary of the detail behind the scenes. So I now have created a summary of the summary.
And by the way, it was riveting reading.
Yes. I was going to say it was a real page turner, Alvina.
All right. This is a recap of the general fund budget that's in your packet and the changes that occurred from the original budget that you approved in June to the first interim, which is in your packet now. First interim is composed of entry budget revisions from July 1 through October 31st. There is, at the bottom of that, I don't know if the audience can see that, the net increase, decrease in fund balance is due to all the one-time dollars that we appropriated into the Mountain House High School startup costs and also to Altamont, some of the needs that they had there. So of course, that's going to decrease the ending fund balance. Fortunately, those expenses that we had to put into the high school were one-time. This is the projected ending balance for the other funds that this district holds. They're all positive. We have received good news that there's a development being put in the Cordes Ranch. I look over at Mr. Pombo, over 1 million square feet that will help the growth that we're receiving out here due to the students' growth. Lastly, I just kind of wanted to point out that the state wants to make sure that we have a positive cash balance as of June 30th, which we will have. This is the time where we start reviewing the LCAP plan. Remember, the LCAP plan is not the budget, but a component of the budget, so it does not contain all expenses that this district puts into all of their programs. The eight state priorities are listed there that are focused in that plan. We do receive a supplemental grant in this district, but we do not get concentration grant money. We require a higher free and reduced percentage of free and reduced and English learners. The first draft, once we kind of get rolling and start commencing our meetings again, we plan to now meet on May 6th and then hold a public hearing June 3rd and then adopt the LCAP plan and budget as of June 17th if we still have our board meetings on those dates. I did want to point out page 167 contains the multi-year projections, and it shows the changeover from one fiscal year to the next, and we will be having a positive certification. It's a good thing to be a district with growth. Do you have any other questions?
It's not only good to be a district with growth, but it's good to have a district and a accounting office who's keeping an eye on things and doing a very good job. And I just, as we always do, commend Alvina and the administrative staff for the work that they put into this. The fact is that they come to us with options for these things so that we're not just spending money blindly or denying to spend money blindly. We have the information to make educated decisions based on the hard work you put in. I just wanted to thank you for it. And to point out that throughout the entire hard times that this school district went through, we managed to stay this way too. So it's not just because things are better. This district has always kept an eye on making sure we were fiscally sound, and I wanted to point that out. And again, thank you all for that.
I wanted to dogpile on that just a little bit. and thank Alvina. She spent about 20 minutes on the phone with me going over the interim report as a first-time board member, and avoided me asking stupid questions in here. She answered all my questions, so I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. One question. I thought that I had the approved budget, so when I went back to tie out the original budget in the documentation to what I had, I think it was a draft. Could you tell me which, you can email it to me later, but which board meeting, so I don't have to go searching for it, which board meeting that the final was approved in, or just send
It
me
was
the
the second board meeting in June,
second one in June?
yes.
Thank you.
And the interim actually includes the first original adopted budget. It's column A in the packet.
Right, I just opened up the original one to just, I don't know, as a CFO, that's one of the things I do is just make sure everything ties out. And so the second one in June, thanks.
Yes.
Being a numbers person, is this on? A school district budget will drive you crazy because there is nothing on the planet less firm. It changes every day.
Yes, that's true. I mean, as you saw the maintenance plan,
Yeah.
that's going to start affecting some of these numbers as well, so
Yeah.
Thanks again.
you're welcome.
So we're gonna need a motion.
I move we approve the first interim fiscal report.
I will second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, consider approval of new 2014-15 intra-district transfers. Staff report? Anything?
No.
We get a motion?
I'll move that we approve the new 2014-15 inter and intra-district transfers as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, consider approval of CSBA Delegate Assembly nomination for Region 8A for me.
No,
Staff
sorry.
report? None? No, as you guys know, I've been a delegate now. This is my second term. I would like to do it again, but before that process starts, I have to have my board make that nomination.
So I have a question. So you're gonna be the president, and we just nominated you for the county, right?
Yeah.
And you want to do this too?
Sure. Great. I've done it for the last couple of years.
You are.
This requires 2 meetings a year, and unless I get placed on a committee, which that happened to me last year. I'm not on a committee this year. Last year I was at Sacramento but it's a
Not
great
in
way.
Maui or anything like that?
I wish. Delegate Assembly is a great way for our district to get a lot of information that's coming straight from Sacramento. I was on the legislative committee, and one of the things we got to do is all new legislation that involved youth or education, when it came from Assembly and Senate before it went to the floor, had to come to CSBA for a recommendation of approval. And what a great opportunity. And for a small school district, no one thinks of small school districts in Sacramento. I mean, it's obvious right now with what we're dealing with the bonds and revenue limits. So,
And I was going to say that the value to us of having Trustee Balzerini have his finger on the pulse of what's going on in Sacramento for education and statewide through CSBA, it's invaluable. And I appreciate all the time and work you put into it.
thank you. Love to do it.
Move to approve CSBA Delegate Assembly nomination for Region 8A, Matthew Balzerini.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, consider approval of new fundraisers for Mountain House High, Lammersville, and Cuesta Schools. Staff report?
None.
I had a question on something, and this is the disadvantage of doing it electronic. Because I'm not on, yeah, especially when it's page 205.
Okay.
There's something about a raffle, and I thought that word was outlawed in education.
Oh, yes, because was it?
I think that's a county office of education function. They've been doing it for years.
Uh-huh.
It's not
Okay.
a student body that's doing it, it's the county office of education.
We can call it a drawing.
It's there. Yeah. I mean, there was a big
Oh, there
thing
is. It just says
statewide
raffle.
on how that's gambling, which I don't necessarily agree with.
Sponsored
But,
by the
you know, when I was a principal, we had to change some things that we did because,
District and student bodies not,
yeah,
but PTAs and foundations.
okay. I just don't want us to approve something illegal. You know, I got this little thing. There's also something on that same page that I still haven't brought up that says TBD. I don't know if I can in clear conscience
Yeah,
approve something that
I had a-
says TBD.
Right, I had a question about that also. That was with the high school, right?
No,
Yeah.
it says 8th grade. 8th grade activities.
Thank you for getting on the page.
There was also,
I would just say that with the raffle, the county being able to do it in a local district's not. That sounds just like Sacramento and what it would do. Well, we can do it, but you can't.
Yeah,
Not surprised at all.
yeah, and I guess if it doesn't involve students, it doesn't really matter. Because that's what that whole ruling was about, was that it was gambling with students.
The kids can do it.
Yeah. But,
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I don't know that I can approve in good conscience a to-be-determined fundraiser. So I would recommend we excise that and ask them to bring it forward when they've determined it.
just to be, I mean, do we know what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
okay, so I would move that, where are we? That we, what?
We're just talking about the 8th grade activities, not the ones above it that have the dates to be determined or.
No,
The sponsored by
just where
just-
the activity is to be determined.
Just-
I don't need specific dates, yeah.
That was what I assumed, but I just wanted to
Yes.
clarify.
Right. So I would move for approval of the new fundraisers for Mountain House High, Lammersville, and Cuesta, with the exception of the one identified as to be determined.
Because if we're going to pass to be determined, then they can all just say they have fundraisers to be determined and
Yeah.
We'll let you know.
proceed with them as they please.
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay,
Second.
Shane seconds, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
Fun begins. Item E, consider approval of update to the facilities use handbook. Okay, so just a little background. This committee has worked diligently over the past several months to deal with some recurring problems that we had throughout the district. The community has limited amount of facilities to use, and ours have become the only show in town for the most part. So we deemed it necessary to come up with standardized policies throughout the district, and also to come up with some standardized fees. We've had many meetings, we created a committee, we've had many committee meetings. We've asked for input, we've received a lot, and for those of you that have come to the meetings and sat for 2-3+ hours, thank you. The committee definitely has taken that into consideration. However, there are many organizations that are very opinionated, but have not helped with the process. So right now, I'm going to say it is what it is. So this is what we have. We are at a point with the handbook now where we're looking for input from the board to get something approved so we can kind of get the wheels in motion. We've had policy in place since we approved this, I don't know the date offhand, September 1st, right? September 1st was the initial handbook, which contained fees for the field use and inside use for the K-8 schools, but not the high school. So we've addressed that. There's a few things in the handbook that as we go through, I'd like to clean up some language and get some guidance and approval from the board. So I think the best way to start off is questions from the board.
I want to start off with a comment more than a question and just say first that during the entire process with the committee, we heard from multiple members of the community, and I think that if you were to ask those members of the community, the process was thoughtful and thorough, and while they may not have been happy with the outcome because it wasn't what they were maybe hoping for, I would hope and believe that you would, if you ask those members, say they at least felt they were listened to and that their opinions were considered. It's difficult for us as members of a committee or members of a board up here to consider opinions that aren't brought to us. And I would just say that, you know, there's a reason our contact information is available to the public. We want to hear from people because in the end, it's you that we're working for. We're working to make our schools better. We're working to do the best we can, and it helps us to know what you think. I would also want to say that I know some people may think that comparing the community services district fees to the elementary school fees is something, why are their fields cheaper than our fields? And I'm going to point out two things. One, every single one of us pays taxes for the fields that the CSD has. Those taxes are specifically to keep those fields up. The fees we're charging are not to do the repairs that were just talked about by Ms. Kaiser over there. That's the school district's responsibility to clean out those gophers, to do those things. These fees were specifically intended, or at least my intent of them is, to help defer or refrain the additional wear and tear that these extra activities will have on those facilities, whether that's fields, whether that's parks, whether that's classrooms, whether that's parking lots. That it's never intended to make a penny for the district, that it's never intended to do the district's job for it. And I will make sure that I express that as often as possible. The fees are, I believe, what they need to be to help us keep them in the condition they should be in. Our job is to get them back in that condition for the ones that aren't, so.
And along with that, I failed to give my normal disclaimer that our primary responsibility is educating kids and making sure we have facilities for our kids, for programs associated with the school and education. This is not the business that we want to be in, but it's something that we're doing to partner with the community. I've taken a real close look at how much time and energy our staff, special thanks to Alvina Kaiser and Lori for all the extra work, all the hard work, all the phone calls. This has not been easy. And we're trying to get a software system up and running to streamline the process. But again, this is not our primary responsibility. We need Alvina crunching numbers, not this kind of stuff. So this is something that we're trying to do. We're trying to make this fair and equitable. That's been my goal all along, to make a fair and equitable process for all as much as we possibly can. I quickly want to tell the board, so we talked about amendments. We released the handbook in September, and we discussed having amendments following for all changes. Because there's so many with this one, we kind of said, we'll do that starting next time.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and clean this up, and then following the approval of this handbook, any changes made after that will be amendments with a new handbook being released every year in August. First meeting in August that's what we're planning for. I want to tie something up. Actually, right now before we get started, I'd like to get some consensus from the board on this. We've discussed it. We've kind of gone around it, but I just want to get some clarification. The intent of the committee, it's a standing committee. The intent of the committee is to meet regularly, find holes in the handbook, and also to fix those and make recommendations to the board. It's not just an advisory committee. We want authority to make sure that we have the authority from the board to make decisions so we can expedite the process for these organizations that need facility use. If there's something that's not articulated properly in a handbook and they have a discrepancy, we want the authority from the board for the committee to be able to make the exception, let them go on, and then bring that information back to the board. Do we have consensus for that, to add that language?
I'm not certain that authority lies with the committee rather than with staff or the superintendent to make those. I think I would feel more comfortable with the committee recommending to the board, and if the superintendent makes a decision that is outside of the handbook, then the board will have the ability to say that was a good call or not a good call and move on from there. I feel like the entire board should have the decision-making power rather than the committee.
Just to clarify, the full board would have decision-making for policy. We're just talking about making exceptions to the rule for specific organizations. And the staff has tried to manage it in the past, and it's been very difficult for the staff because it's so controversial in the community. And if staff would like to confirm, my understanding is that it was appreciated that the committee could assist with that process. And again, this would just be something that's not articulated in the handbook, something that's a case-by-case basis that we would make an exception, but then bring the policy moving, should we do this? Should we make this regular practice to the full board at the next regular meeting?
When you say the committee, you're talking about everyone on the committee having a vote on some exception that comes up that can't wait until the next board meeting.
Correct.
So
There's
these should
4
be far and few between.
That's our hope. We're hoping to address everything, but I mean, since we finished this handbook at our last meeting, we've had 3 new things come up that we never
sure.
thought of. I mean, it's just,
I'm sure.
it's a living, breathing thing, and it's a lot to manage.
Because my gut agrees with Mr. Pombo that the committee shouldn't be making decisions, and I thought our conversation was that it was going to lay with staff, but I also understand the challenges that staff has had in making decisions when those anomalies come up because they're so off the wall and don't fit into any neat little box. Not that it was easy to make the neat little boxes. As long as there are people on the committee that are board, kind of like a site council, board, staff, and community.
Well, the committee's
Voting on that.
established, we have, it's, and it's not necessarily a vote, is we're looking for, we want, beyond consensus, we want everyone to agree. And it's 2 board members and Director of Maintenance Operations Transportation and the Chief Business Official, yeah.
I'd want to add, I actually would love to see a community member
Yeah.
on the committee. I think it'd be a great opportunity for some of the organizations to be able to get some input, but also I'd go back to what Matt talked about earlier. I'd really like Dr. Nicholas and Ms. Kaiser to be focusing on educating our kids.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it's few and far between. I think what the worry is for the first year or so, it's not going to be few and far between. And to at least have some people there that can say, yeah, you know what, we would have loved to have helped volleyball. We didn't have the power to have helped the volleyball folks, whether we could have or not, whether we wanted to or not. We didn't have that opportunity, and they lost an opportunity to have a league locally. That opportunity cost our residents. There were some kids that were trying out for that group. To give them an extra 2 weeks before they had to come to us, that 2 weeks was that critical to them. And then we could have said, yes, pending board approval, this isn't a definite yes, but we can get the ball rolling for you and talk to them about it. Or no, you have to go to the board meeting because of this and this and this. And I think if we set out, pretty clear parameters that it's, it can't be an existing policy, I think, in the end, that committee is going to exist for a long time. And I think if we can get members of the public that are also on it too, I really think that would help.
I have a question just on how it operates, because the committee is also bound by the Brown Act, which means notice, agenda, the whole 9 yards. And what I hear you saying, Matt, is that we need to, that because the policy, there's just no way to envision all the possible permutations of reality. We need to be more nimble, my word, in order to respond to stuff that comes up. And so your proposal is that the committee is able to be more nimble. And my question is it, and I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm saying, okay, given that they're under the same, I was thinking that the superintendent and the chief business officer and the staff, they are nimble because they can make a decision within the confines and then bring it to the committee. And so that's what I was thinking, where the nimbleness was going to come from. Sure. And my question is, how would that operate for the committee to have that same ability to react?
Well, I mean, it would be agendized. It just takes a lot away from the decision making. It takes the decision making away from the staff and puts part of the board into the equation, because we have had these discussions, and I think that, well, I'll speak for Shane and I, we know the direction that we're trying to take this. And having organizations beat down the district office door when they don't get what they want is not acceptable. And by having this committee, it's alleviating that. It already has in certain situations. So,
I'd also point out,
and I would love the input from staff at this point.
You were right on between, telephone calls during the day if I'm working on budget about this organization that my child's participating in. I want from staff that have children in organizations, maybe participating in an event for your child, my staff, having outside organization approach them on their own personal home time. That, to me, is unacceptable.
Were you going to say something?
Just to add one quick thing, I would also point out that when this policy that we're now trying to fix was originally implemented, that was exactly the rule that existed in there, that certain members of the staff were allowed to make exceptions. And that's what happened to certain foundations had to pay for facilities use and other foundations didn't. And groups thought that they could charge admission or lock down our facilities and other groups didn't. It didn't have a cohesive place that you could go to for answers that was responsible primarily for this function. And again, I would say in the short term, nimbleness is a great word, but I would also say that it's an opportunity to make sure we're hitting those holes that are just going to have to exist, rather than having to wait once a month or every other 2 weeks for something that might have come up and something we do need to address. And I would say that, that I don't think it's the intent to give this committee more power or Brown Act issues, because I don't think it's really a policy issue as much as it is, yeah, you know what, we're right, we didn't consider that. Let's take this up. We'll go ahead and see what we can do about it. I don't think it would be a Brown Act issue. It doesn't.
As long as the notice is.
Right, and again, that people know that that's on the agenda on a regular thing. I just, I have seen the numbers of calls and messages and emails that staff have gotten about this kind of stuff, and I just keep going, we got a budget to do. I mean, let's let these people do the jobs they were hired to do, and let this committee do this stuff until it gets to a point where, yeah, okay, we're getting 2 calls a year. All right, fine, no big deal anymore.
We had over 200 applications so far.
I guess,
Process.
So I need to say something, though. I totally trust Mr. Belzerini and Mr. Nielsen to make these kinds of decisions. I don't see it as a board function, though, because it's not the whole board voting on that. And I just, decision-making,
Are you talking about if it's allowed?
yeah.
Or, no, well, I've read board policy, by board policy, it's absolutely allowed. If the board gives the committee the authority, they can make those kinds of decisions on behalf of the board and report back. That's what bylaws say.
Here's my problem. Everyone appears different, and when you make decisions, you have to make them based on the fact that tomorrow, there's 5 + 1 different faces sitting here, okay? And decisions that are made at a committee like that, it's reflective of the board. And if I don't know about it, how can it be reflective of me as a board member? I just want us to be really cautious. I trust you guys. I mean, you've put
No, it's
so
not- and-
much work into this.
Trust me,
It's
I
not
hear
a
you.
trust
It's
issue.
not about the people,
Yeah.
it's not about the trust.
I just
I
want
get
us to
that.
do
No,
it
we
right.
need to do it
and
right.
there's
I'm with
something
you.
that I'm uncomfortable
I'm
with.
just trying to make this as expedient as possible to the community and not bog down the board in having to deal with individual issues all the time. And also to try and take some of that burden off of the staff, because they're spending way too much time dealing with it. And at least in a committee meeting, we have all the players in one room and everyone gets to hear the outcome every time.
so just to get back to the mechanics of how it would work, if someone comes with a special request that is outside the parameters of the policy, then a committee meeting would be called and noticed, and
Would be listed as an action item. And the committee would hear from the organization, discuss, review policy to see if it fits within the current policy. If there isn't a policy or it's outside of the policy because of some extenuating circumstance, the committee could make the approval and then have it added to the next board agenda to let the full board know, hey, this is the decision we made, this is why, and here is a policy change because of this individual issue.
That I don't agree with. I thought we were talking about only when it was a time-sensitive issue that it couldn't come to the next board meeting. That was what I heard when we started
30
talking.
day- that would-
With 30-day required, if you, 30-day advanced application, then that would never, that would never happen.
Normally, but we're talking about the exceptions, for some reason,
Didn't realize it, and it's
Yeah.
coming up tomorrow.
yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking that
Yeah.
way.
I-
I have a question on that. So would that then, because I had discussed with Alvina this policy because, I had some verbiage issues. And one example was the I'm just going to use it for lack of a better term, the first, like the previous application date. So two organizations with the same status. They're both 501c3, they're both supporting, and they both, one requests, Wickland's multipurpose room on day one, the next one requests it on day two, right? They're both within 30 days, they're both otherwise approvable. Then what would happen is the first one would be the one approved. And I understand that. But then I said, well, then, like my question to Alvina was, okay, you've got an organization that's long-standing in the community, and I'm just going to use Mountain House Little League, and then you've got a new 501c3, West Coast Children's Baseball. And they come in, and because they're all gung-ho, they get there on the very first day that they can apply, and then Mountain House Little League, because they've been around for a while, they're all volunteers and everything, they get there on day two. And what Alvina told me was, well, we're not going to the policy, we can't word the policy so that it takes into account every possible permutation of reality. So we would really look at that and say, well, okay, yes, this new baseball organization is applying for the same fields, but Mountain House Little League has been working with our kids for a number of years, or flag football, or any organization that you want. And we are going to act to kind of protect them as long as the rest of their application, it's within 30 days, it's correct, they got their insurance, the whole 9 yards, we're going to do that. And so my question is, would staff still have the ability to do that, or would then it need to go, under your concept, would it need to go to the facilities committee? And basically, it's either, the staff would be like, it's either in line with the policy or not, and they don't have any ability to, make judgments, or is it just the difficult ones? And there are some that are more difficult than others, right?
Right. I think that it would need to go to the committee. If it raised question that's not covered in the policy, it would go to the committee. If nothing else, for staff to bounce it off of a couple more people that have been working with this stuff. And I can tell you that Shane and I have followed, when it comes to the staff recommendation, we're pretty good on, we've been following most of it. I mean, there's a couple things that we're kind of like, well, we're bringing it to the full board because we don't agree with it. But most of the stuff, staff's recommendation, it makes sense. But I think it's just that extra step that they can tell the community, yeah, it's going to have to go to the committee. We'll discuss it then, and it stops the conversation.
Also,
I've seen when we have staff members that are in tears because people are just hounding them over this stuff, that's not acceptable. So my thought was to try and create an extra layer to remove that.
And it was my correct recollection, or at least it's going to be my recommendation, that when we're putting these things together, your exact issue is addressed. There are organizations that have existed here for a very long time. We need to be setting up a prioritization for those groups. And that's not to punish the new groups, but that's also not to use this handbook as a sword to say, well, yeah, you're a day late and $1 short. The application period, my intent was always that it was a period, that if you're within that 30 days, that was all received on the same day, and then it goes for approval, and that the organizations that have existed, we talked about using the inception date, using the 501c3 tax returns to see when you actually became a nonprofit, so
that's
that
all
we could
included.
use that to prioritize, and that's all in there, and that would help alleviate exactly what you're talking about. I think I look at exactly what just happened to Tracy Explosion is what we're talking about. He wanted to start his league. He had found out late from Tracy he couldn't use their facilities. He wanted to use ours. We granted him a special exemption to do the tryouts. He wanted to start conducting practices. And he said, I don't care if it's at 9 o'clock at night, whenever your school is done, we would just like to use it. And the answer we had to give him was, sorry, we don't have the power to help you do that. He had, how many girls was it again that were coming?
We had close to 100 girls.
And 40% came from Mountain House. That means 40 Mountain House girls didn't get an opportunity to be a part of that organization because we didn't have the authority to say, let's make an exception, let's get this to the board, let's see what we can do and get this going. We had to just say, sorry. And that's, I think, I don't know if that's completely what Matt's talking about, but that's what I would like to see this committee have the ability to do, because then when they say no, they're not the ones saying no. It's an adjunct of this group to say no, and then they're not calling and yelling at these folks. They can yell at me at a committee meeting, or you at a committee meeting if you want to be on it, and that's what we're paid to do, to look at you in the eye and say, no.
So I guess my question now is, does the committee have authority to make decisions, or is it strictly an advisory committee to the board? That's what I need consensus on as far as, so we can add the proper language to the handbook.
I'm sorry, can I ask one more clarifying question?
Absolutely.
So now that we've had this discussion, my understanding is that what you're asking for is the ability for the committee to make a decision on on an application or a policy interpretation or whatever, and have that stick for that decision.
Correct.
And that if the board says, you know what, in the future, I understand that you made that decision, but going forward, and so that one sticks, but going forward, we think we should do something else. Yep. You just want to be able to make the decision on that so that you can be nimble without handcuffing the board to a committee decision like in perpetuity, unless you change it.
Yep. Correct. Make that decision, bring it back to the full board and say, this is what we did. Do you agree with it moving forward? Yes or no? And then that way we can make it policy.
Well, having staff actually weigh in and say that, and if a staff member has been talked to in such a way by the community that they cry, I find, I totally hear you. Like, I understand the need for more weight.
And that's exactly where we're at today.
And I think I'm okay with the committee making a decision on, as Colin spoke, this instance, we are going to make this exception. It comes to the next regularly scheduled board meeting. We discuss it. If we feel like that's something that should be implemented into the policy, then the committee will come with a recommendation. We believe that X should be added to the facilities policy and go on from there.
Yes.
I'll be okay with it. Two pieces, that we do commit to have a community member as a voting member of the committee, and that we revisit this when we revisit the policy handbook in July, August, to see how it's going.
Sounds
Okay.
reasonable.
We have consensus, so we'll add that language. Okay. Now, now the easy stuff.
Okay. May I?
Let's just dive right in.
Okay, let's dive right in. So the piece about, on page 213, I know I didn't get very far into the document.
Yeah.
The piece about the committee will submit an updated handbook annually, blah, blah, blah. I don't think the language, the concept is there. I think the language needs a little bit of help, because it says any handbook changes recommended and approved by the full board will be added as an amendment in the back of the handbook. The amendments will be incorporated into the handbook when submitted to the governing board annually.
Right.
I think there needs to be something, amendments after the initial approval for that year. Yeah. There's just something minor missing in there. Does that make sense, Alvina?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. But the
Just
concept
a bit
is there
of
and I love it.
clarification.
Yeah, just a little bit of clarification.
I just want to mention on the next page that there is a statement that all fees collected will go to a separate account for improvements to said field facilities. These account balances will be reviewed at each facility use committee meeting. That is something that will be on every agenda. We'll discuss the accounts balances, and then all purchases for improvements will also go through the committee.
Okay. Facility.
I have a comment on, so are we doing a page turn where,
I was hoping to avoid that, but if we
well,
can, if you have it, go ahead.
I actually, first of all, I was gonna say that it's very clear that the facilities committee has worked very hard. I've had feedback from the organizations, and at first, they were terrified. I'll be honest with you. I had a lot of people bending my ears about that fear, but as the process unfolded, a lot of those I think all of them wish that the fees were lower, and that's understandable. We can deal with that in a minute. But they all, everybody that talked to me said, gave kudos to the committee and to Matt and Shane in particular in terms of listening to what the organizations were saying, trying to understand where they were coming from, the impact on, their fiscal impact and everything. And so I did find a number of them. I did speak with Alvina of comments and none of them changed how in other words, they were basically focused on making the wording support what we're trying to do rather than disagreeing with the policy. And so I was wondering, we can do a page turn, or would it be appropriate to submit those comments to the facilities committee, for consideration later? You had mentioned that you wanted to go through and get it all done. The only way to do that is, so I'm just throwing it out there.
We've gone back and forth on how to, and we really want to get this done. I think the organizations really want us to get this done. So I don't know any other way than if you have a bunch of questions, let's just start going through them.
So shall we do a page turn where everybody lists their, questions or comments on a page?
I think that's the best way
and
to
then we
do it. We'll get
probably
lost otherwise. Yeah.
But- And I think we need to clarify at this point too, if we could, Mr. President, how are you going to involve the cards that you have in the community members? Are you gonna ask them if there's specific pages they want? Are you gonna
Let's go
treat-
through, we'll bring that up after.
Okay.
We'll go back to
Just so
that after.
just
And
so
then,
they know how we're handling it.
So I have something for 215. Anyone have anything?
I have
before
one on
that?
214, section D(1). About halfway down the paragraph, states that it is the user's responsibility. Hold on.
Yeah, I see it.
It says,
Okay.
example can be samples are provided on period. So we just need to add where the samples
Something
are
missing.
provided. That's it. Typo. Like I said, these are, a lot of them are minor, so.
it's fine, we need it.
Yeah.
That's,
So that would be an insertion of a page number
Or wherever.
wherever that.
Right.
you find it, Alvina?
I don't see it either.
One,
Right-
two,
right below
three,
before.
4, 5,
right
6,
below it.
7th line.
Approval samples are provided on.
What we plan on doing with this section was putting it in the back of the handbook, but when we get the website fully up and operational, it's actually gonna be a link that you can click on to see the sample. So, we'll put the sample both in the back of the handbook along with on the website, when they can fill out an application.
An
So it-
alternative for
So I'll
is
make
you
that
put the link on
notation.
the attachment.
Just flag it. Okay. What's that?
You put a link on the attachment, then you don't have to edit the actual content of the manual if you've got, if it's gonna be exhibit G, that's where your link will
That's
be.
what we-
And
yes.
then that way you're only messing with that and not the full body of
Yes.
the text.
And everyone understands the process in which we're going to open it up, accept applications, then following that, we'll close it, organize by tier first, then by, if there's, as a tiebreaker, we use their date of 501c3, to the 501c3 formation, and then following that, we'll hold a committee meeting, and if there's any conflicts, we will try and mediate those conflicts to see if we can, hey, you've got 5 fields, they're only asking for 1, any way you can give up one of those, and if the answer's no, then we go to the policy. That's kind of the concept, the format of what we're looking at. Doing it in September, I'm sorry, we do it in September for inside facilities and December for fields. And we used December because that was kind of a natural break between the sports. So, and when they make the applications, it's for the entire year. And then if there's we're gonna also have backups. If there's cancellations, we can notify the next person on the list, there's a cancellation, do you still want it?
Did we get any feedback from any of the organizations that use our facilities? Are these dates cutting it too close for any specific sports? I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
We got a lot of feedback from a lot of committees, from a lot of different organizations, and at the end of the day, we got to the point where it's like, you know what? We need to do what's best for our organization.
Okay,
And,
if that's been considered, I'm fine
yeah,
with it.
we've welcomed input, I think we went above and beyond reaching out.
Okay.
And I would also say that the biggest issue we heard from most of the sports organizations was an August date. Having the same date for that as other things, because that really wraps between several sports. So that's why we talked about moving outdoor facilities to December when there's usually a natural break in what's going on. There's not a whole lot of
Because there's nothing
games
going on in the winter,
December
so
or
it is well in
January.
advance.
We went back and looked at when we were receiving applications and when they were for, and that was
Okay.
the natural break. And it also happened to be after CalPads and before whatever the next thing is, so. 215?
215, let me find my spot again. The third paragraph. Okay, in the last line, facility rental user or authorized representative. Okay, and what is this not? Oh, the sentence that begins with the word inform in the fourth line. It's- Yeah, inform facility rental organization, sports league coaches. It's not a complete sentence, and I'm not quite sure what it's supposed to say.
Oh, yeah, it actually
Sorry,
starts with
where are you at?
Right,
Third
you've got
paragraph,
highlighted
fourth line.
Facility rental organization.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it starts with the word inform. And I can't fix the sentence because I don't,
And I, as you know, we took Tracy's handbook, and the sentence originally that Tracy had didn't have the red section underlined that I included, because I had trouble with that sentence too. What we're trying to state is that it's not the coaches shouldn't be contacting us. We deal strictly with the person filling out the application, the organization, not the
Okay, well
coaches
then
that work for them.
sport league coaches needs to go first. Sport league coaches shall inform the facility, I'm not quite sure.
It's a tough sentence.
It's still not,
You can fix it though, right?
What you're
if you
saying,
Fix it.
We'll fix it.
okay, it's
Thank
just
you.
an incomplete sentence.
We'll fix that one.
Thank
How
you.
about facility rental organization shall inform league coaches not to contact
Yes.
business service?
So inform is in the wrong place, thank you.
Yeah.
well, it's a, yeah, FRO would really be, I actually get it. but
So
I see what you're
we went through this as a committee, and then I spent another 4 hours on it.
yeah.
And then I sent it to Alvina, and then she spent another 6 hours on it, so it's been
I
challenging.
think our eyes were already
I-
crossed by then.
I do have a comment on the next paragraph.
Yes.
And that one is, it says that organizations with rosters representing at least 50% of our students, which would be 1,750
That's not what we
students.
meant.
I think what we're trying to say is
Yeah.
organizations whose rosters include 50, or
Yes.
who have 50% or more of their rosters are our
Yes.
students.
Yes,
Right.
correct.
Yes.
You got that?
That's an easy
And I
fix.
think
That's
that
an
was-
organization.
I think I was half asleep on that one.
Okay, so we'll fix that, okay?
Yeah.
Then still on 215, the fourth paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, all users must provide proof of nonprofit status for tiers 2A and 2B. The issue is that it can take up to 2 years to get proof of nonprofit status. And like boosters, we operated for 7 months, and we had meetings and everything without our not-for-profit status. We'd applied, so I would propose that they either provide proof of not-for-profit status or the IRS Form 1023 that shows that they've applied for it, because the IRS rules say that you can act as a not-for-profit during the application process.
But how do we know if there's a chance they would get denied?
Well,
That they just don't qualify?
the IRS covers that by saying that you can operate as a the IRS. Yeah, and
Okay.
technically, granted, you're not listed on the IRS select website, select check website. You don't have any proof, so most corporations won't give you big donations. But like me as a parent, I can contribute money to that organization once they've submitted their 1023, knowing that my contribution isn't going to get disallowed. It's not enough for a corporation, but it is enough. It is.
Hey, if that's an
according to
IRS rule, I'm good with it.
Like that.
The only
Yeah.
question I would have to do that, because I agree, it's a great idea, but at what point, I think what was really trying to get to there is, at what point do we find out that they've been denied and they just continue to act like a 501c3, but they're not anymore? Do we have access to the information to say, okay, this has been 2.5 years now. You should have heard something. At what point do we draw a line and say, yeah, the application doesn't cut it anymore?
So for a year?
That's all I would say, is just to have that in.
I mean,
Upon renewal? So for
because
the
the
first
reality is
year?
they can show documentation from the IRS, the IRS, when I was working with the PTOs, they sent me stuff, it was this marathon of, I would send them the information they wanted. So if they can show us documentation from the IRS that they're in process, that they're answering questions, that they're resolving issues, whatever, then.
Well, and that can be something you always bring to the
Committee,
committee and say,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know what? You
Right.
improve it.
Right.
You
So
can
do you have
just say,
the
yeah, got
the
to go to
verbiage,
committee.
Alvina?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, moving along.
Isn't this exciting, folks?
Oh, man. I'm sorry, there's no easy way to do this.
I tried to avoid a page turn.
There's just, it would just delay it longer.
I'm on 216. I don't have anything else on 215.
Okay, 217,
I did have one on 216, I'm sorry.
216.
The second paragraph in section 3. Facility users are not permitted to store any of their belongings on sites. And I know currently the PTOs store a bunch of stuff on site, and maybe I'm misunderstanding the policy, or maybe there's another policy that acts to enable them to do that, or...
No, and you're talking about food?
No, I'm talking about their, like, behind the stage on Wickland is the one that I'm really familiar with. They have their carnival games, and, I mean, they have a big storeroom that basically they use.
And most PTOs do.
No doubt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do the site administrators have a problem with that?
Not-
That's what I would ask is, in those kind of situations, I always defer to, if the principals don't want that stuff on their campus, we're sorry, PTO, that's what they want, but if they're okay with it, then making an exception for, parent-teacher organizations.
But I think the
makes
intent
sense.
is other organizations, like Mountain House Little League, right?
Yeah,
They,
exactly.
That was,
It's
that is the
food,
intent.
the drop boxes that
Yeah.
are left on the fields and stuff
Can-
like that. Or again, food in the cafeterias that people are storing in our fridges.
Our job boxes are there for equipment to maintain the fields that now you guys are gonna charge us for.
You can't speak from the back, I'm sorry.
I was supposed to talk earlier.
I know, well, when we get to the cards, you'll have an opportunity.
I didn't think of the drop boxes on baseball either.
Like I said, I would be, if we find out that the principals don't like it, then we could change it, but I don't see why not to make an exception for it. If, like, the site administrators that are here are saying, yeah, we pretty much are okay with it,
All right,
Having
what if,
been a principal, I'll tell you that the PTO storage is pretty much for day-to-day operations of the school, not just the big PTO, can't say PTA, events, the foundations and the PTA. And that's, I don't know how to word it, but I do see a difference in the organizations.
what if we just add language to say that it must be approved by the district? Must be included in the application, approved by the district.
How about unless previously approved by the district, or unless approved by the district?
I think it's dangerous.
I think we're stating that we're okay, or it sounds like the principals are
Open to
okay
it.
with tier 1, which is school and foundations, PTAs.
that's a good point.
Tier
Yes.
1 might be the best.
Excellent.
Anyone outside of tier 1, yes.
It doesn't address the boxes.
The,
All right, we'll come back to that then. Okay.
that was all I had on 216.
Okay, so you'll just add language for tier 1? Elvia? Okay.
On 217, I did not understand the first paragraph. If a new school should open during a current calendar year, no facility rental will be permitted.
Yes, we need to change the language on that, actually. Altamont we had representatives from the Altamont organizations come to us and say, hey, we're a brand-new parent-teacher organization. We're still trying to get our feet under us, and we have no facilities because you've rented them all out. So what we're saying is for all new schools, you can't rent them. And we want to add language K-8 schools, just to say that, hey, that first year, let the school do their thing. We're not going to allow any outside rentals. It would just be for those tier 1 organizations.
So, booster, like,
Tier 1.
all the organizations for that school still can rent.
Tier 1,
Okay.
yeah.
Tier 1. So I think that we need to articulate
Tier 1.
tier 1 and K-8 schools. And we want to make that, we want to implement that immediately with Altamont.
And I think this,
No further renting of those, and I'd like to get some consensus on that as well. If everyone has see where was that, as far as, we don't want to allow any more rentals of Altamont because they can't get it when they need it. These are the parent-teacher organizations.
and I think a lot of it came up too, we were talking about the baseball field specifically, and the soccer field, the grass fields that are back there.
That was
and
also-
worried about the additional use of those facilities in the first year, and the contractor's actually recommending we limit the access to that for the first year. So it gives the school district the opportunity just to say, look, we're trying to make sure the fields are in better condition than Wickland or Lammersville are, because we're allowing the grass to take, remember, those are hydro-seeded, so it's gonna take them more time to get established. So it's really about just letting the school breathe before we allow all of these organizations saying, you know, we're out of room everywhere else. Well, yeah, but this school needs to exist first. Let it build its own environment before we force on it an environment from outside.
I like this for another reason, and that is that we're going to be giving priority to organizations in good standing that are coming back. Well, a new school, they don't have good standing, they're not coming back, they weren't here before, so they don't have that ability. So I like this for that
We're okay?
reason also.
Okay, and we're okay including Altamont this year, for the rest of the year? Yes, okay, got it? Okay,
Especially if the contractor recommends it.
Yeah.
Oh, is that specifically the high school?
okay, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Anything else on that page, anyone?
217. Oh, the second to last paragraph, it says, or any group, if any group sees an unauthorized organization using district property or any group misusing district property, report the unauthorized use. I would, my recommendation was that we say, essentially, because it's the organization, we're asking them to report it, right? And so I said something, or any organization or individual misusing district property, the group should report the unauthorized use, is what I said, but I'm not married to that one.
You got it?
Well, does a group, I think this was
The individual
written-
that reports it, yeah.
This was written, a group shows up to their reserved field and someone else is on it, and that should be reported. I think that was what was trying to be expressed here. But it also expands to if you see an organization that you happen to be at a
Misusing, right.
board meeting or a facilities use committee meeting and you know someone was denied, let us know they're still going.
And it's also but misuse too, where,
Yeah.
again, if you're running in soccer cleats on the track,
right.
that kind of stuff, just to say, hey, this was happening, so that either the board or the committee can look at that organization and say, hey, remember the application you signed, it had certain rules, let's make sure we're abiding by those, and if you can't, there are ramifications for that.
So we're okay with
I
the
think all
language
he's
as
saying
is?
is he wants to put the organization or individual report to,
Should.
report the authorized.
The
Group
organization
or
should.
individual.
It's kind of it's one huge sentence there.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just kind of leaves group at the beginning, so to indicate to the group or to the individual to go ahead and report it.
Got it? Okay.
Just to clean up things.
I'm okay all the way to 220.
.219, there's a typo. So the use kitchens require authorization from food service department if food service worker and custodian are secured for the event. It's just, something's missing. We can,
Where are you?
219,
Where?
third paragraph from the bottom. Or second paragraph, I guess.
Service worker and custodian are secured for the event. Yeah, it's actually not a complete sentence.
Need to be, or something, yeah, there's something missing. It's just a typo, I think.
And actually, a food service worker and custodian must be secured for
Right.
the
Should be.
event per Article 3.
Yeah, must be secure, yeah.
Must be,
Change it to must be.
That's easier.
Okay.
Excuse me? I think on page 213, someone forgot a period. Sorry, I caught that and I,
Okay,
yeah.
That's your.
where's it at? 213, where,
So, it's after the part where it says website, like let me count this.
website.
When, after the part, there's the paragraph and then there's the highlighted golden section.
There is, right after handbook.
Yes.
It doesn't look like there's a period there.
Where is it? Oh. Nicely done. Good catch.
Oh, yeah.
I see it.
Well,
Wow.
yeah, because
That definitely was my error.
Young eyes. Was underlined. We never would have seen
Until we
it.
get to the high school facilities, so.
Okay, you guys have anything else leading up to,
I'm good till 220. I don't.
let's talk 220 then.
Okay. The third to last paragraph on 220 says cancellations may be made up to 24 hours, and I think we're trying to say in advance for an outside event.
Yes. All right.
I love baby.
So we're getting to the high school now, huh?
Yep.
Okay. Now, this is a first draft, this whole high school section, and a lot of it we took from Tracy, and I don't like it. So next year is going to be much better, but right now it's something. I just don't like the way it flows. We need to spend more time on it, and we will, but like I said, we'd like to get this approved. The content is here, it just needs to be made pretty or something.
Do you want to continue with,
Yes, what do you got?
on 222, this is really minor, E and J, subpoint 5, little e and little j, assist facility user is twice.
Yes, we saw it twice.
Had her check that to make sure that they weren't incomplete sentences, but no, it was just a duplicate, so we can delete one of those.
And then the lettering is off too.
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
L-A.
Oh,
That was not,
that I didn't notice.
We'll change that.
And there's an A at the end also,
yeah.
Yeah.
after the O.
When are we dealing with substance?
Whenever you, well, let's see, is there any other, like, any of this kind of stuff that we can just finish up and then go back to substance? Do you guys have any?
I'm okay with that. That's what I'm asking. I just
Yeah.
minor substance.
Colin, do you
Just
have other
keep
stuff?
doing it page by page, so we can get through it.
I'm,
They want to talk substance.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'd be fair.
Requirements.
I'm okay with the verbiage through, up till 225.
225?
On prioritization and fees, it states, for those organizations that do not agree with their status based of past usage,
Based on?
Yeah.
And then another
Well,
one,
it's also, the whole sentence is wrong, because for those organizations, it may come, you should say the organization may come before.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really a complete secondary sentence there.
Those organizations do not agree with their status based on past usage.
Supposed to say they may.
Yeah, I would actually switch them.
If you get rid of those organizations that do not get it, you could just get rid of the four.
Organizations who do not agree with their status based on past usage may
Yeah, without the comma.
address this with the facility use committee. Something like that for discussion and clarification.
Just get rid of the four, though.
Yeah.
And get rid of the comma.
Yeah.
That's what I do, Alina. You just drop the four and drop the comma and just start those organizations that do not agree may come
Okay.
before the board.
Mm.
You're right.
the other comment that I had on that was, we specifically call out 501c3 status, but there are other types of exempt organizations like 501c4. Can we just say tax exempt status? Or are we specifically going for 501c3?
What's the difference?
C4s are civic leagues and social welfare organizations. I mean, there's a series of 501c, there's a whole series of different tax exempt types of
I
organizations.
like Colin's idea
I think
of
we
just
can
saying
do that.
tax
Tax
exempt.
Yes.
Yeah.
On tier 1, little 3,
Yeah, that would-
we talk about serving food.
It should say in there, using equipment. That would be considered a high-risk activity if they're using the equipment.
Right.
Not if they're just serving food that's not being,
Yeah.
Are we?
Sure, you can talk subs, yeah.
Well, no, because again, I think it'd be unfair for us to be able to talk substance and not take comments. I'd rather go through and do all the grammatical
Okay,
stuff first and
sorry.
then come back and do
Well, it's not
substance.
necessarily grammatical, it's, I mean, a lot of it's changing what the,
Oh, because you get the board
yeah.
input first and then your
Yeah, we'll
public
come back.
input.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
That was all the verbiage changes.
Okay.
that I had. Thank you for.
Sure. Okay. Anything else? Okay, Pasa, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that on tier 1, the little 3, I noticed that there's like the parentheses, and then there's the parentheses at the end of the section, but it's almost like there was only like one set of parentheses that were closed, and then there's
She's correct.
another set that
Yes.
wasn't
There's
closed.
one opening and
2 closes.
Yeah, it's kind of confuses the meaning too.
Yeah.
25.
Page 225, down at the bottom, number 3.
section 3.
It starts off, it's got the first parenthesis around high risk.
Uh-huh.
And then that one ends next to climbing walls, deep fat fires, bull rides, and then it ends, and then another one ends at the very end of the sentence, yeah, the last paragraph. So,
You can edit my papers anytime.
Yeah.
I know, right?
okay, what do you got? Colin, you good? Okay.
So, are we gonna talk, there were a couple of things I wanted to ask about it, but I do think kitchen one we're gonna be getting to, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, is there a reason we don't want the PA speaker used at the football stadium before 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday? I don't know that it's been a problem. I don't know that it would be a problem. I'm just curious as to why. I mean, I hate arbitrary rules. They make no
Only
sense to
because,
me.
This is language,
only because
too.
that's what was introduced.
And I'm just like, why?
The only thing that I wanted to check.
1 o'clock in the afternoon?
I just wanted to check and see what the CCNR said.
Yeah,
And I
but they can't do
couldn't,
1 o'clock.
I couldn't get my hand on it, so, well, what would you suggest? It's on
Bottom of 222. I don't see any reason to differentiate between Saturday and Sunday. I just don't.
Anyone else have a problem with that?
Absolutely not.
Not me.
Let's do that, and then,
Strike item E then?
yeah, strike item E.
Yeah.
And then what we'll do is we'll go back, and if there's issue with the CCNRs, then we'll bring it back. So we'll strike that. I actually had that as a question on mine, too.
Before 10 a.m. or after 9 p.m. Okay,
So that's reasonable.
yeah, absolutely. 'Cause you have, both of those days are Sabbath days, so.
Okay, real quick, I need to have a discussion about this. Currently in the policy, it says that anyone that's renting a facility has to pay for a custodian if it's outside, what is it, regular hours, normal hours? If it's outside normal hours, which as a group, we've talked about before. The question has come up about these tier 1 organizations. If they should have to pay for a custodian for setup and takedown. The discussion that was had was that they didn't feel it was any different for the custodian to set up for a tier 1 organization than to set up for after-school basketball. That just should be something that's within the normal day, which I do agree with. The issue that I have is on the weekend when there's not a custodian on duty. And I don't feel that the district should have to incur a cost for a custodian to come in on time and a half to open the facility and be here to present for an organization. I realize that the money goes back to the schools, but we're dealing with two separate pots of money, and we're talking about district versus schools and parent-teacher organizations.
So, you don't think we should charge for a custodian if a group, let's say, is using a gym for basketball?
No, I'm talking about
I think
tier
I
1
missed something.
tier 1
Okay.
organizations.
Yeah,
No, they were saying that set up for a tier 1 organization would be the same as setting up for after-school basketball, the school team. We would have the custodian, that's part of their normal duties. So the discussion was that a tier 1 organization should be thought of just like the regular school day. That a custodian should set up for something for them. And again, I agree to a point, I agree with that during the week, but I don't agree with that on the weekend.
okay, I'm with you. All right,
Well,
thank you.
and They wouldn't set up for the school on the weekend.
Right,
unless we did
'cause
something
it's outside of their
specific we'd have
regular
to approve,
duties.
Because I mean, we don't have weekend basketball tournaments for intramural sports.
And
So what you're talking about is, for instance, one of the schools has their fall festival on Saturday. They need a custodian there to
Yes.
open and close and do custodian things throughout the day, that should be
and that's currently,
paid.
and that's currently what's going on, and I think that practice should continue
Absolutely.
on the weekends.
Do we want to, and maybe this is something for the committee, but entertain the possibility of, say, for the foundations, something that doesn't require a custodian if the principal or some other site administrator was willing to open for, we don't want to do that.
No,
We ran
no,
into problems with
because that's union work.
Yeah, yeah.
And even outside, I mean, it's in their contracts, you know, what qualifies overtime and stuff like that.
Now, at the high school, I'd like to acknowledge the work of the committee. We made the recommendation, and it's moved forward, that we have a custodian that's Tuesday through Saturday. So Saturday is a normal workday for the custodian, so they would already be on site. Again, for inside facilities, that does not mean the stadium. The stadium is something separate. We learned that through trial and error.
So essentially, the policy is to the extent the district incurs an incremental cost associated with an event. Like if we have a janitor, a custodian there already, then they don't get billed for that. But if we don't, then they do, right?
Right. The discussion that the committee had was, if a custodian during the week is setting up and taking down, it's adding time onto their regular workday. So we said that if you aren't, if it's not done and their workday extends beyond that, that we would,
You would
charge for
absorb,
that.
you wouldn't or would?
We would charge for that.
It's an incremental cost.
Right. I feel like with the tier one organizations, I could see making the exception, but I think the other tiers not.
And what he's talking about is that same rule would apply to if the custodian had to set up the volleyball nets. That's taking that custodian away from the other things, and therefore they're going to be there an extra half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. We're not going to charge that to the sports organizations. Why should we also charge that to the parent-teacher organizations? And I happen to agree that it's that closely tied to what we do.
When you say we're not going to charge the sports organizations, you mean we're not going to charge the school?
Yes.
Right. Yeah,
Not
we have to be specific.
outside
Yes. Sorry.
sport organizations.
I've dealt with this. I was a principal, and when the custodian did need to, set up chairs for a big PTA event, and that was taking the evening custodian away from his duties, I worked with him to adjust his schedule so he could still leave at his regular time. Okay, skip A, B, and C, but make sure you do, M, N, O, and it works.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have consensus. So for tier one organizations during the week, no cost. Weekends, yes. And then the other organizations continue.
What if the event itself goes beyond the custodian's hours? We need to address that.
It can't.
What was the question?
If the hours
event
go
goes
beyond, or if the event goes beyond the regular hours of the custodian.
We have a check-in, check-out process, and so if it's found when they go to check out that they're beyond what they've requested on their application, then they are billed.
Well, I guess
And that's in writing somewhere.
Yes.
Well, the first question is,
Beautiful.
are they allowed to? And I guess the answer to that would be
Well, they're
no.
not, but stuff happens.
Right.
you
And
know.
if it goes on,
Yeah.
then they have to incur those costs, right? Yeah. And that's,
So they can't plan to
No.
go beyond the custodian's
No.
hours,
Right.
but if something happened and they did get stuck
Yes.
there.
And it was a
that
lot
they-
of trial and error, discovering how long it really took to wash down those stadium bleachers, so we're learning.
okay. So that one's checked off my list. Shall we talk kitchen?
I would love to talk kitchen.
Okay, let's talk kitchen. Yeah, I know you would love for us to talk kitchen.
Paige's Kitchen
Sorry.
on
Where is kitchen?
I thought it was 223.
223, okay, I'm there. Got it.
No, it was food prep. It's part of 223 where it says food preparation. Again, because we have Tracy's, it doesn't really, I think, cover all the things we wanted to talk about, so.
Okay.
So the discussion initially by the committee was that as far as the high school was concerned, we were not going to allow use of the kitchen at all. The food service director came and spoke to us, and since then, I've gone to some meetings, and I don't know, we're gonna have Bernie come up and talk here in a second, but it sounds like we might try and make some, or we need to discuss that, I guess, as a full board. I think for tier one organizations, because of the amount of funds that they can raise for the site, that under certain guidelines, it could be allowed. So would you like to speak to that, please?
So you pretty much said what I think you thought I was going to say. I do feel very strongly that our tier ones should be treated differently than the rest of these outside organizations that might look to use our kitchens. So when you posed some questions to me, my answer is for the kitchens in general throughout the district, I think that if it's a tier one organization that benefits the school directly, yes, we should permit them to use the kitchens. However, I don't feel we should be renting our kitchens to outside organizations that do not benefit our district, our school directly.
And you're talking all kitchens?
All kitchens. Now, I know there was some concern about the newness of the high school. I still have some concerns. It happens within my group. I have, we're gonna place staff in our kitchens. We're gonna make sure that things are used right and HACCP is followed. But even with untrained people using our equipment, it happened day one at the high school. I had someone who tilted the brazier and popped off a faucet and had to be fixed. That was my staff. So that I look at that and I go, yeah, there's a potential for things to get broken in this kitchen, even having my staff there. So if for the newness, I don't know if there's a warranty issue that goes with this and letting other people use it. So it's still a discussion. If we're talking the entire district and all the kitchens within the district, that's where I stand regarding that.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
What if they wanted to have food at an event and were willing to hire your staff and none of them could go into the kitchen?
And absolutely, I think that's a possibility, and I think the fees need to be based on the number of people that are attending and the amount of work that needs to be done, both for prep and cleanup. So let's say you're expecting 200 people. You need to look at hiring approximately 3 people for the entire time of the event, including your prep and cleanup.
So maybe you need to give
can-
us some kind of chart to include into our facilities use. You're the expert.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it depends on what I mean, there's going to be some variables within there. If you're asking for scratch cooking, as opposed to just serving something that's being prepared for somebody else, there's a huge difference there. So you will have some variables to play with, but I think that is definitely an option.
So for the tier 1 organizations, they would still have to pay for a food service worker to be there.
They have to.
Yes.
They have to.
I mean,
Regardless
law,
of
right.
tier, yes.
I understand that. But I just want to make that clear that they would still have to, that cost would be incurred by the organization. They'd still have to do that. So,
And would you have limitations on the size, like beyond X number of attendees? So now the kitchen's really busy. Do you need 2 of your staff there supervising?
Well, and I think there's some issues here and some other things to discuss. I'm going to use the example of a spaghetti feed at Wickland. Wickland hires one of my staff members. They have their own people come in to help prep and cook the rest of the food. My staff member cooks, but she also supervises. She makes sure that the equipment is used properly and the cleanup is done properly, but their own volunteers do the work. So it depends to what extent they need my people.
And that the one person, because I've been to the spaghetti feed, so.
The one person is sufficient.
Busy, and the one person was enough.
Especially that person, she's amazing, yes.
But we can't on one person.
But yes, because they have sufficient volunteers, it really depends. Now, if you want to talk crab feed that they're talking about having, it depends on how many volunteers. If you only have 2 or 3 people that you think you're going to be able to bring into the kitchen to help, you're going to need a lot more help. It depends. There's so many variables.
well, and I don't think we, at least I would not like to make it a matter of policy that the expectation is that the food service personnel are there to do the cooking. I don't think that's what the intent should be. I think that they're there to supervise and make sure the equipment's used properly and clean. Yeah, they're there for guidance, and it's a
Complaints to the chef should not go to her staff.
yes.
Correct. And I think that holds true for your custodians as well. As a previous secretary, when people would come to rent the facility, they would say, well, I'm paying for custodial, so they clean everything up. And it was never written anywhere as to what they were getting when they paid this fee. So I think it is something that needs to be put in writing. When you hire my people, this is what you're getting. When you're hiring custodial, this is what you're getting. So I think that's important to put in there. I mean, my staff works anyway. They're not,
Right.
they don't want to sit around and
But
do nothing.
we need to articulate what the expectation is. So
Absolutely.
if they want to jump in and help out, okay, more
Absolutely.
power to you, but
Yeah.
that's not the expectation.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Storing items in the kitchen. I just want to confirm,
What's happening currently?
well,
What you want.
yeah, what do
Okay.
we, what are we trying to accomplish here?
Currently at Wickland and Bethany, they're such large kitchens, and a little bit at Cuesta. I have given a shelf in dry storage and one shelving unit in the refrigerator for them to store dry goods and a little bit of perishable items
Them
within.
being
I'm sorry, WSF, BSF.
Major organizations.
foundations, okay.
But also ASB and CJSF will store certain things in the refrigerator to grab as they need. Moving forward, our kitchens are so small, they won't have the ability to even accommodate that at all.
So-
They're too small.
Now is the time to make policy changes, so
If you would like to make that change, yes.
that's your recommendation?
There is a little bit of a concern because I do keep USDA foods and I have to certify that those USDA foods are safe and there is no possibility for theft.
Okay.
So-
It makes perfect sense. Seemed like there was some conflict, because that was the direction, based on the committee meeting, I thought we were going, was just not allowing it.
Okay.
No storage, and that's, and,
If you would like me to communicate that to those organizations, I will give
well,
them time to do that.
we need to reach consensus first.
That's fine.
But that's your
Recommendation.
I am so torn.
Well, I can
On
blame
a
you-
personal
no, I'm just-
level, I am very, very torn. Being a previous president of those organizations, I know how invaluable it is to be able to keep those things there. I don't have an issue at those two kitchens with, especially dry storage. You know, I have to rein them in every once in a while, but, so I feel conflicted. The big issue is USDA foods and keeping that secure.
Do we have any sites where the parent-teacher organization does not have any storage? I'm not talking about the kitchens, I'm talking about the other stuff like behind the stage. I know my PTA had a whole room behind the stage that was the size of an office.
Yeah.
So they had plenty of storage. Do we have any sites where there is nothing available for that type of organization? Because I don't think, number one, they shouldn't be keeping perishables. They're not having activities that often.
CJSF, I believe, sells food to, at their sporting events, but I don't think any of it is perishable that they can't keep in their class. California Junior Scholastic Federation, one of those.
Yeah, I think and with the ever-changing laws
Yeah.
in your
I
department.
just think I think it's a good practice to
I
start
think
off
we
with.
need to cut it clean.
And if that's your consensus, I will pass along that
Our
message.
decision, and you're just supporting the board, so you're not the bad guy.
I am never.
Hey, no, we're supposed to.
I'm the fall guy here now.
So do we have any more specific questions? I think those are all the questions I had.
Oh, well, yes. We've talked about the one-year rule for the rest of the facilities. I'm going to say, understanding your perspective that you don't want any non-tier one organizations to use the kitchen because they're not directly benefiting students, we could use that same argument to the fields and to the classrooms as well. We allow them to use those facilities.
Correct.
I would just say for myself, going forward, I think we need to think about that policy as not an all-encompassing policy. That kitchen will provide a lot of opportunities for some of the other organizations that could use it as well, provided they follow the same rules. And I don't think a blanket no policy to any non-tier one organizations, it doesn't sit well with me, because again, I go back to the same thing. Well, it doesn't benefit the kids to allow, the students of our schools to allow the Girl Scouts to have a meeting in one of the classrooms. But we allow that. Getting there are other issues, other ancillary issues
Correct.
that we need to take care of. I think as a permanent solution, I wouldn't be in favor of absolutely no access to any kitchen ever for non-tier
Let's
ones.
deliberate as a board, but do we have any other questions for staff?
Well, I wanted to ask you what was, aside from that, my question for you was, aside from just it doesn't benefit the students and the
What
safety
was my
issues, are those
thinking
your
on
only
that,
really
and
two
why am I
concerns?
giving such a blanket statement to
Yes.
that? Because I think it opens us up so far to the other side of that. What's to stop a chef from saying, I just want to use this as a satellite kitchen to rent out your facility, and then I have somebody in there. I feel it opens it up too far to the other side. I understand there's other organizations that are probably very interested, but that becomes my concern, is we inch our way the other direction, and then I'm running something else. And it's wear and tear on that very, very expensive equipment.
Past practice has been that youth organizations and the like have been able to use the kitchens for fundraiser meals. Those, have we had issues when that's happened, or?
I mostly am only dealing in the kitchen with our tier 1 organizations. I haven't had too many people come and ask the other side. We have had birthday parties requested. You know, you get people who want to rent out a facility for a large birthday party, and then they want the kitchen along with that. So that's really what I see.
Because we could also draw a distinction between nonprofits and others, rather than just tier 1
You
and
could.
others.
Mhm.
I would like to recommend that we go with your suggestion for this year and revisit it, because we have to revisit this policy in August.
Every year.
We're already at December. Let's see how it goes. See, did anyone ask that we said no? Maybe it's not even an issue.
Correct.
Maybe it is an overwhelming issue that you know you don't even have the staff that can do all those events.
That,
Okay, I'll concur with that. And I think between now and then, you know, we're going to definitely have you back to a facility committee meeting.
Absolutely.
Where we can start hammering some of this, the
The
fine
little
detail.
nitty-gritty stuff out.
Yeah.
that recommendation isn't currently reflected in this
It is not.
policy, is that correct?
No, it is not. We'll have to modify the policy to read tier 1 organizations only.
And I also wanted to mention that if there's a high-risk activity, a tier 1 could potentially be a tier 2A. That's on page 226.
Which is any time a tier 1 uses the kitchen, right?
Exactly.
So we can't limit it to tier 1 because PTOs
Yeah, I
aren't.
started to,
PTOs are not tier 1, is that what you said?
If they
They are.
start
If they
cooking in the
start-
kitchen, they're a 2A.
It makes them it goes into a 2A category. I mean,
They're,
right, because we
can
we've
word
actually
the policy to
we've
cover that.
separated the distinction, because that's initially how we kind of got into our mess, was we were labeling organizations as what tier they are, but you're right. When they operate in a different tier, that's what we have to be. So
Because now they're juggling knives.
you'll be able to word that?
Exactly.
yes.
Welcome to my day.
Okay.
Thank you.
I tried to do that before.
Are you done with me?
Very good. Thank you.
For the board, you know, in response to Sharon Lempel's comment, the one, like, you know, Mountain House Little League used to always do a pancake breakfast as a fundraiser. And, you know, so, you know, before the board just goes directly to no outside organizations, you know, that is a tradition, which they've gone away from for the last couple of years, I believe,
Yeah.
but, you know.
And I believe the Hurricanes have had a luau or spaghetti feed or other events as well.
Well, since we had consensus on what can go to the facilities committee, if one of these groups comes up with a nice written proposal that the facilities use committee says, let's try this, let's approve it. We just gave them the authority to do that.
I like the way you think.
Okay.
Cool. Very good.
Okay, does that address it, Colin? Okay.
Okay. From the board, are there any other policy? I think I got those are the big things that I had. Any other policy questions, issues?
Excuse me? Like,
Yes, Pop.
so, okay, so this might seem like a little bit sticklerish, but on the high school stadium rules on number 7.
What page are you on?
Page 220.
222.
2-2?
7C, iPod hookup is okay. I kind of think that that term iPod, like, because I've done like AV stuff. I've done stuff for Cuesta, and I kind of help out with Mountain House High when they have their own assemblies. Using the term iPod is like bad because like the
Branding
hookup
it.
it's compatible with certain devices. So can we use a term like compatible devices or compatible mobile devices? Like,
What is
just
the
be more
word?
specific.
Okay, what's the
Is there a geek in the audience? What is
audio?
the word?
Well, I mean, you're really talking USB hookup, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, because but I would say, you know, what we need to do is make sure we're not talking about, I don't know, I'm not the person.
Compatible
That's what-
peripherals, would that work?
Ben, what would you suggest?
Yeah, compatible.
Yes.
Really bothering me.
So it's just more, it's kind of like what Sharon's always saying. Don't use the name of the program. It's like saying
Right.
Band-Aid as opposed to bandage. So just make it generic, like
What's the term?
portable electronic device.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
Thank you. I was just,
That's why you're there. You're not being a stickler. That was excellent.
does the board have any more comments? Okay,
Nicely done, again.
Trevor Main? Sorry for the delay. Truly, my apologies. There's no easy way to do this, so.
Good evening, Board. My name is Trevor Main. I'm the president of Mountain House Little League. Took term this August. My concerns with the proposed field usage fees is that our youth sports do not have the money to pay such a large amount. I've sat down and tallied up the field usage fees from last year for what we use for your guys' facilities, and it would cost well over $10,000 for us. No amount of fundraising that we do can match $10,000. I could go to the biggest companies in the world, and they're not going to give me $10,000. So I'm asking the board to please consider changing Mountain House Youth Sports, I'm asking the board to please consider charging Mountain House Youth Sports, which cater to youth of Mountain House, a flat fee per session. So basically a flat session fee, $2,000-$3,000 instead of $10,000. My board's willing to do that. I just don't know how we are supposed to cover $10,000 when we are the ones that actually maintain the fields. That's why we keep our boxes at the fields. We've always done all the field maintenance. Last year at Bethany, we were the ones that took care of all the maintenance on that field. We hardly use any wear and tear on all those fields compared to football and other organizations like soccer. We don't have any wear and tear on them.
Clarifying question? Yes.
Yeah, do you have the figures there? Because when I did the math, I came nowhere near $10,000. So do you have?
I don't have them with me. I could get them to you if you'd like.
I would love to see them because when I did the math at I believe it was $5 per hour for the entire school field.
Or field.
No.
Well, I'm talking about
So
in the school
Wickland
in
is
general.
$5.
Correct, but that's per hour, correct?
So you're talking 3 hours a night, that's $15. 3 fields, that's $45. To get to $10,000, you got to times that by 2,000. You're using 2,000 hours worth of fields.
We're using a lot of hours of fields.
during
I don't
the
have the
school.
exact numbers in
And
front
I
of
would
me.
just say, I don't know where you came up with the numbers because that was one of the first things the committee sat down and did was look at specifically baseball because you use the majority of the fields.
Correct.
Because it takes that much space to do it.
Correct.
That's right.
And like I say, if you're talking about $15 a night, 5 nights a week, that's $75 a week for one field for 3 hours. And I don't know if you
But we
use
use it all the way through
Okay,
the
you're
week.
starting
We
to
use
get
it
a
on-
discussion now.
So I would just say, if I could get the supporting documents for that, I
I'll
would
get
love to
it to
see that.
I
'cause
do have
don't
a
think we came up
clarifying
with-
question as well. So your calculation, do you recall how many players you were looking at to come?
Last year we currently had 375.
Okay.
We're looking at 400 this year, but with us raising the rates, I don't even know if we're going to get close to that. Because I had to raise the rates to cover the cost of not only the school district and the CSD fields. Now the CSD has been willing to work with us and charge us a percentage because we have 100% of our kids are Mountain House kids. We're not a Tracy organization. We're not a Livermore organization. We're a Mountain House organization.
And how many school fields were you assuming that you were using?
We have everything except for Altamont. So we have Wickland, Cuesta, Bethany, and that's right at the 4.
And your 10,000, that was for the school these are all clarifying questions, right? The 10,000 that you're
It
estimating,
might have
that
been
is,
based on fully with the CSD, but I'm pretty sure the majority of that was towards the school district because the CSD fields we only majorly use on the weekends.
What do you currently charge for your players? What's the season cost?
Depending on what level.
Give me the range.
Yeah, so we have peewees, which are young kids, little ones, 3 and 4 year olds. Those are ranging from $60 all the way up to our 50, 70 kids, which are 12 and 13 year olds. They're paying $200 right now.
We have to wrap this up. Okay, I do want to note for the board on page 236 of the handbook, in-kind services and improvements to outside fields which mitigates the wear and tear on or improve the maintenance of those fields may be accepted in lieu of fees with prior written approval of the committee. So work with the committee and we can see what we can do. At least that's.
Can I give you guys a proposal and do that? Would that work?
Sure. We can get you on the agenda. There's a form in the handbook. Well, we'll see where, first we have to approve the fees, so.
Okay.
Should we bring somebody else, or do you want to discuss fees?
Can I ask a clarifying question on fees?
Please.
I thought that the original fee structure had already been approved by the board, and we were adding in the high school field fee.
Correct.
So even if I said no, and I voted no, and I convinced two other board members to vote no, it wouldn't change the Mountain House Little League fees right now.
Technically, you are correct. However, we brought the whole handbook back, so now if we want to make changes, now is the time to do it.
Okay.
We've
approving the whole book.
we've agendized the whole handbook, not just new policy.
Okay, right.
So, yeah. So technically, you're correct. What's in question are the new fees, but we can discuss and go back to the old fees. I think the reason the Little League is here is because baseball season's coming up.
I know.
Tell you what, let's, Devin Bola? And did you want to talk, was this about the handbook also?
No.
I'm sorry. I should have had you come up earlier. Go ahead. Now's a perfect time. That's fine. We'll have you come up just because,
Related topic. Do I push this?
no, it starts.
Oh. Good evening, Governing Board. I am Devin Bola. I am the president of the Mountain House High School Performing Arts Boosters. And my primary purpose in coming tonight was just to introduce myself to the board and our organization, and to thank you for all the support you've given to the kids so far. It has made a really big difference, and we're seeing some really cool results from the organization. For example, their first competition ever in Santa Cruz in October, the color guard took second place, which was very impressive, especially when you consider the fact that most of the kids are brand new to this. They've never marched as a group prior to this year, and it's primarily composed of freshmen and sophomores. Well, it is all, obviously, so very impressive. Then their next competition in Merced, they got 2 second-place trophies for band and color guard, and then just this last weekend at the holiday parade, got first place, beating out other high schools in the area, which was very, very cool. So, you know, we just really appreciate the support that you have given us as a school and in the town in general. And we're working hard to raise money for the organization to help shoulder the costs of the program. And it's just made a really big difference. You know, for my family especially, it's given my daughter a real sense of purpose and structure. She's found a real joy and love of music, and you know, if it wasn't for that being available to her, I really don't know what we'd be doing right now, you know. And just having the open-mindedness and willing to teach, the hard work of Mr. Rexall and the rest of the administration at the high school supporting this has just been invaluable to me. And I want to make sure that we can do all we can to bring this to as many kids as possible in the community, because I think it's really, really important. So that is all.
All right, thank you very much. My apologies. I thought you were here because of what we talked about in our previous meeting with the
That's
usage
okay. I
stuff.
think you handled it.
Very good.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I
Thank you very much.
support those comments
And
as well.
Devin, let me say thank you for all the effort that you and the rest of the VAPA boosters are putting in. Thank you very much.
And to relate to the students, what a change just in the fall season, going to the football games in both the band and the color guard. That last game, I was blown away by the skill level of both groups of students.
They're doing an amazing, amazing job.
Yes.
So.
And I would just like to thank you for breaking up the monotony of the,
If I can help with that, let me know.
The #1 academic and marching band school district in.
There we
Go
go.
down. We're going to be adding stuff.
Kelly Hendrick?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to make sure to give you a little food for thought on the conversation and decision that you made regarding the usage of the kitchen and potentially the refrigerator on our campuses, especially for Tier 1 organizations, possibly like the Parent-Teacher Organization or CJSF, ASB, 8th grade graduation, dinner dance. The use of storage, sure, we can take the crackers and snacks out of there for Snack Shack, but water, soda, juice, stuff we're trying to keep cold so that we can sell it. That's one of the primary fundraisers that's been approved for CJSF to pay for their end of the school year dinner. And so I just want you to keep in mind that those organizations are that's what we're doing. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's talk about fees. The committee, most of what you see here is adopted from Tracy. We looked at several other local schools, tried to find schools that were same size, kind, like, and Tracy was actually the best rates around, believe it or not. So what we did, we took, I don't think we didn't really deviate from Tracy's fees, correct? But we actually lowered them a little bit in some cases. And honestly, we got to a point where it's just, we didn't know what else to do. We were worn down pretty good. So it was just kind of like, you know what? We were out of ideas and said, we're just going to adopt Tracy's, and we lowered some of them and thought, let's bring it to the full board and see what the board thinks. In fact, we got to the point with, there was something we're going to talk about specifically with the board. I need to recall what that was.
I thought you put it in your notes from last meeting on your calendar.
Yeah, I'll come back to that. So, any discussion on fees?
I just wanted to add a couple of things from it, at least from my perspective, on the fees that we're charging. We were trying to be very mindful as a committee of what we have available, and the fact is that we don't have the outside resources that other cities have available. And that was one of the discussions, the big discussions we had at the committee was, we can't just point our fees in line with other school districts because they're operating in a completely different structure. Tracy has an abundance of additional fields that their baseball teams can use through other means. We don't, and that's why we actually talked about lowering our fees from some of those things for that purpose. In the end, I'm going to, Matt, this is an old refrain from Mr. Balzerini, and I'm just going to echo it. We're doing the best we can with the resources we have. The CSD bears some responsibility to get some additional utilities, resources, fields, amenities for this community. That's really where baseball, football, soccer should be played. The majority of the sports that you see going on in every other city don't tend to happen just on school grounds. They've got dedicated facilities for this. We have one baseball field that's a real baseball field, some of the small ones that I just don't count. The CSD bears the responsibility to help us bring those costs down for you because they're supposed to be providing those resources, and we're doing what we can to keep the costs down where we can, but it can't be at the expense of what Matt will say is our primary job, and I will agree with him, making sure those facilities are available for our kids when we're supposed to be educating them. So I think we were very mindful of the fees and trying to take every possibility into consideration. We talked about capping it at the number of hours. We did a whole lot of things to try to make this as reasonable as possible, but in the end, we have to have something. And it has to be consistent and uniform across all boundaries. That's why we added that additional language of come to us with things you can do to help us maintain the facilities, and we can look at what kind of a cost deferral that can bring. Those kinds of benefits are there to try to help offset those costs. But in the end, I think that the fee structure that we came up with was fair, taking as much into consideration as we could. So.
Yes. And also, the committee spoke at length about the cost for replacement of specifically the high school stadium, that field, track, that, those facilities it's $1 million to replace it every 10 years.
Yes.
So, and by constant use, it reduces the life. And the maintenance that's involved, that we hear back from Jim Nolan, our maintenance transportation, was it maintenance operations transportation? Director of maintenance operations. He spoke, at length about the maintenance involved and having to go out there and rake it, and just from kind of the trial basis of the football program that we let use it at a lower rate this time because we didn't have fees established. He said that, we learned a lot. Maintenance-wise, it was more than they anticipated. So we want to take that into consideration when we talked fees. And I know it looks really high, but it's lower than anyone around. So, and it's much, much nicer.
And I think that everybody needs to take into consideration and realize that this is a work in progress. We're going, at some point, whether it's tonight or not, we're going to approve a policy, and it won't be the perfect policy, and there will be issues with it, and it will be revisited, and maybe at some future date, we decide, well, those fees are too high, or maybe we decide they're not high enough. And maybe some of the organizations will decide, well, you know, we really don't need to have that many of the facilities for our things. We can shift some things around and take up less of the facilities because, as has been discussed up here quite a lot, is the fact there aren't enough to go around. We're telling people no all the time because we don't have the facilities for people to use. So that's part of what charging for the facilities does, is keeps organizations from booking facilities that they don't really need. And so I think, you know, all these things are things that we have to look at, and we have a committee in place that can listen to hardships, if you will, or whatever, and we're gonna try to work to get along and make it as best as we can.
And we need to get this passed so we can use it. And remember, that very first page says we can pass amendments as we move along. And that addresses what Mr. Pombo was just talking about.
I do want to reiterate that, you know, the appreciation of the Facilities Committee for all the work and all the meetings and the more discussions, an impossible task. And all the feedback to me, fees aside, was that, you know, everybody at first was terrified and upset, and then, you know, was like, okay, this is, you know, we're really glad they're listening. I want to iterate. I was glad when I read in the policy that, you know, what I'll call sweat equity. I forget what the word is, but because yes, I spent a lot of years in Mountain House Little League, and I know that as a parent, I don't want my child to catch, I don't want the ball to hit a rock on a grounder and catch my son in the eye, even though my boys don't play anymore. So I know that the parents of Little League, and like flag football, if they see a big rock, they're going to pull it away, but it's very player dense. A lot of activity goes on in a smaller area, whereas baseball, as you know, is less player dense. It takes more field, and the parents spend a ton of time going through the outfield, pulling weeds. I understand that we're not supposed to mow lawns. I'm assuming that pulling the big weeds is still okay. And so I would, no, don't ask, don't tell, Paul. Okay. Anyway, I was really greatly relieved to see the sweat equity, for lack of a better term, and I would encourage the committee and staff to be generous, and because I know from experience how much time we spend on the baseball diamonds.
Sure.
And I think that, for an organization that just wants to play a pickup game, they're not going to, an adult pickup game, they're not going to do that. But if you've got a really little leaguer, you're really going to pay attention to the field. And, so I'm just saying, hey, I get the fees, and, but let's be generous. Let's listen to what they have to say and be generous on a sweat equity deal for them.
And I would just like to piggyback on that a little bit and say that I believe, is an important part of this facilities policy, is that it allows that, but more importantly, it has to be approved. So an organization can't go out there and do what they feel like they should do to our facilities for their purpose. It has to be approved by the district. Okay, yes, you can do that. No, you can't do this, because, ultimately, they're the district's facilities, and if they're damaged or misused or whatever it is, it's going to be the district's problem to remedy it.
Trustee Pombo brings up a very good point, and this was one of the issues for having an established policy, and because we didn't know what was going on in our facilities before, and this is a way for us to take some control of it. So
page was that sweat equity piece on?
236.
Thank you.
Those were my words, not
Oh,
Paul's.
I like those words. Yeah.
If there's no further discussion on the fees, there is one more thing that I'd like to bring up. The track. So, I've been, I would like to say a lot of people, but it's actually just one very loud person has had many conversations with me about the track. So, what was discussed with the committee, I'm not naming names. What was discussed with the committee is the desire for people to use the track for running. And we want to accommodate the committee, but the track, of course, is high ticket item. We want to control the access in that area as best as we can. I met with people from the running group, and I actually reached out. I had the Tracy Press wrote an article for me, and I solicited for feedback from the community. I received 3 emails back. The discussion we had before was whether or not to put in a card reader. It's going to be a $5,000 purchase for the district. We would have an application on file.
I'm
issue
sorry,
a
a
card-
what?
A card reader to get into the track.
Who would have cards? Students?
No. People want to use a track. Runners.
Who
Pay for access. Pay for access. It would just, some control is what we were trying to gain by it. Based on the lack of participation, we decided that wasn't the best way to go. So we are going to open the track as much as we can during the daytime. Of course, not during school hours, not a half hour before, a half hour after. We will have it open from 30 minutes after school until sunset. That's the decision by the committee, of course, if you guys approve. The one piece that the question that came up was, do we allow people to run on the track during football practice or during practice by any of the school sports organizations?
Why?
Hold on, let's,
I'll tell you
so
when he's done.
we posed the question to the staff. The recommendation back from the principal was no. I don't know that I agree with that. I know that in a community I lived in, I'd go out and run the track the whole time while they were practicing football. It was never an issue. We're talking about high school students under supervision, someone that's running on the track, and that's a discussion the board has to have.
May I please tell a story, a true recent story of someone, too bad, someone who was running the track while students were doing whatever the activity was. A student ran into a person, freak, hit circumstances, hit his head and died. And that school district is in huge litigation, lawsuits, being sued. This is gonna go on for a long time, and I don't wanna open us up to that. If we have student activities going on, the public is not there. We wouldn't do it for our indoor facilities. I don't think we should do it for our outdoor facilities. And I feel
Can I
very
ask-
strongly about this.
What was the argument of the people that are arguing for having the track open during what, we should be able to run on track? Is anybody saying we should be able to run on track while football is practicing, or?
I agree with it. I think, we should allow them. I mean, it's community people, they want to come and they want to run circles around the track where they're practicing football and then leave. I mean, and we're talking about high school students that the coaches are on the field. It's not like they're out there by themselves. Is it that big of a deal? And I don't know. I just don't think it is.
Coaches don't see everything the kids are doing at every second.
But then are you going to exclude all parents from watching the practices too?
No.
As a parent,
On the field.
okay, but see, so the parents go on the track. You're not going to exclude every outside participant from being in the track. You're not eliminating all possible liability. That's the first thing I would say. And the second thing I would say is, we do have, under the facilities agreement that we have with the CSD, an obligation to do certain things, to provide certain amenities. And I don't see why a football practice on the football field, track practice, totally different. Track practice.
They're using the
completely
track.
different.
They're using the track,
If
obviously.
they're not using the track and the track is open, to allow someone like me who wants to use a track to go on the track to run, I'm not sure why I should be excluded because football practice is going on. And I understand the coach may not like it because he doesn't want people scouting his teams, and I get that.
I don't, with the liability issue and the safety issue, I think at some point you just go, you can't do everything, and this is the best facility that we have for people. And again, can sound selfish, but for people like me who have bad joints, to run on the Altamont track, which is not an all-weather track, is not an option for me. If you're talking about people who enjoy the exercise and want to use the facilities and live in this community, to restrict them simply because football practice is going on, but they could go to Altamont and run on that track if there's a soccer game going on, I fail to see how we can draw that distinction. That's it.
I think parents being there, they're watching their kids, they're involved, is very different than someone who is in their own world running. They're not paying attention to what the kids are doing. They're paying attention to their own running. That is the school district's field, and it's a school event, and we've said no less than a dozen times tonight that it's for the kids first and for what we are doing with them. And our athletics fall into that category in my mind. And
I would agree if we were eliminating.
parent observers, that's something else. They are paying attention to what's going on, but a runner is not.
Trustee Clements, any comments?
I hear both sides of the argument, and actually, there could be practice on another playground, right? And somebody could be running, because we allow access to, like Wickland's, baseball thing, and so I am leaning that way to allow it.
I would tend to agree that, although I see Trustee Lampell's point, the fact that we are not excluding parents or other individuals from being there is, I think it's something that will be hard to split hairs on.
And if I'm a parent going to watch my daughter play soccer, I can't run on the track while I'm there to watch her play soccer? I mean, that would be, and I would say at some point you just start drawing the line, and I think Colin's point is exactly right. So if we start getting school-based soccer teams and practices going on at Wickland, then that means no baseball players get to use those fields, because there could be a collision, or no one gets to play on the playgrounds because a ball could fly across and someone's not paying attention. I just think that at some point we have to recognize that, again, we're the only game in town.
Have we looked at whether other districts have policies against running on the track while activities are going on in the field?
Some do, some don't. I used to run, Burlingame got a great track, Burlingame High, and I used to run on that track all the time. They allow it, but I heard Pleasanton or Livermore, one of the schools out here does not.
I think Pleasanton doesn't, right?
No. So some do, some don't. So, make a decision and we can evaluate it.
This is going to go into the facility use?
It is.
Okay.
So it sounds like now we have
I feel very
consensus.
strongly about it, but I'm obviously only one. But I would have to vote no on the entire booklet, on the entire document. That's how strongly I feel about it. I think we need to be paying attention to our kids during our time and not have to worry about any interference with people on the track.
And is it currently in this version of the?
Not that I read.
No, it's not.
see it.
It's
I
not
was
in
trying
there.
to find
We need
it, but
no,
I-
it's not. We need,
this
that was
normally
something that
addresses-
we delayed because
Right.
as a committee, we just couldn't talk about it anymore. We were all divided. We couldn't talk about it anymore. So you know what? It's going to the whole board. That's how kind of
And the school
controversial.
district where this happened, they didn't have a policy against it either. Well, they do now.
But I would say that if we're going to restrict it at the high school, why aren't we doing it at the elementary schools? If we're gonna
That's a
start
really
having-
good question.
And I think then we start running afoul
How do you
of all
enforce
of
it?
the problems. And I go back to, not much different than what I was talking about with the kitchens. When we start creating separate sets of rules that have to be applied differently at different locations, that's how we start running into problems. And to tell someone, yes, you can run on the Altamont track, even if Altamont, if they have a soccer team, they don't, but if they did, you can run there but not at the high school. Or now we're gonna start restricting them from Altamont. So now we start leaving the facilities that people need and need to use, that we're the only game in town on again. What I really foresee as a problem with that is leading down to the point where if baseball wants to use a baseball field and Wickland creates a soccer team, we have a soccer league out here for the intramural sports, which I know the schools have been pushing to do and would love to see, then we're not gonna allow the baseball field because it's directly across from the soccer field, and there will be the potential for cross-play. So now you've eliminated the baseball team's opportunity to use the field because Wickland now has got a soccer team.
But that's
what
two
we'd be facing.
teams in organized sports. You're talking about the casual person who's going to run around the track while those organized sports are out there.
Why should the casual person not get the benefit of using the fields that are there for the community that we're required to provide to
It's a
them?
different, it's actually a
Because it's
different field.
during the
It's
school
track
time.
versus the football
But it's,
field.
and I, this is just from my
They were-
perspective, the track and the football field are separate. They're far enough away that it's the massive exception where a football player is gonna end up on the track.
You know that I listen, I change my mind.
Oh,
I will
sure.
never change my mind on this.
I'm not saying, I'm not trying to convince you, I get your point.
So Alvina, we need to add a section to allow, we just put the hours in there, that's all we have to say. We don't have to, I mean,
The same hours.
yeah, the same hours, after school, every day.
I thought we decided though not 30 minutes before.
Yeah, 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after.
But if we just do hours, what about when the track team is practicing?
You're right, that does have to be the exception, is when the track is in use by students.
And if pedestrian joggers, for lack of a better term, on the track become, if the football coach comes and says it's an obstruction.
Yes.
If Ben comes and says it's an obstruction, the facilities committee is gonna react to that.
Absolutely. And
So,
the
okay.
board-
Let's start with this board.
And I'm not trying to convince you, Sharon, because you've made it very clear
board
that
can
you will
come out
not be
and say, you know
convinced, so
what?
I'll shut up now.
Nope. Because you know what? I also had to deal with the kid that was in the accident with the person that died.
I understand, it's unfortunate, it's
Kids
just
can
that
get hurt.
freak things can happen.
Pedestrian can get
anywhere.
hurt, yeah.
I respect that.
And we are responsible for those kids that are practicing on that field at that time.
Is there anything else in the handbook that you guys saw that was blaring? Okay. Now the question is, based on all the information we just gave Alvina, does the board feel comfortable voting on this with the amendments that we just gave, or would you like it to come back? Again, I just want to mention that we have many organizations that have been knocking down our door trying to get us to get this done, but we do have a lot of change at the same time. So I will leave this to the board for discussion.
I'm gonna make the changes and approving it.
What's that?
I don't think, with that one exception, we haven't made very many substantive changes to it. It hasn't been a massive override of certain policies. It's more been a clarification to make sure the rules were clearly stated. I think this one addition that we just talked about is really the only one that changes things.
And the kitchen stuff.
And the kitchen stuff.
Yeah.
But I also think, within that, we need to be talking with those organizations and not evicting them tomorrow. Trying to figure out a way to get this dealt with.
Yeah, it would be all future uses.
I apologize, Mr. President. As it relates to the kitchen, did we decide what does the policy as potentially, I've lost track of what.
Tier 1 organizations only for all sites.
Okay.
That was the consensus that we had at the time.
But-
If you guys
but
would like to rediscuss it, we can.
And an organization can bring a proposal to the facility use
yeah, that's
committee.
Would like an
Yeah.
exception, they can go to the committee.
But that
And the storage, yeah.
that includes tier 1 organizations that
Become tier
transfer
2A, yes.
2A
Exactly.
because they're using the kitchen.
But if Mountain House Little League wants to do a pancake breakfast, they can bring it to the facilities committee and it will be considered.
Correct.
Okay.
But weren't we making a recommendation to eliminate storage in
That-
all
that
kitchen
is the-
facilities?
that is the-
And that's the recommendation. And
I think we
while
have to.
While I get Ms. Hendricks's perspective, the problem we've got is we can't have a policy that it's at Wickland, yes, at Cuesta, no. The Cuesta parents won't believe that that's fair, and I'm going to agree with them. It's not fair. You can argue space limitations and everything else until the cows come home. We can't have a policy that says at Wickland School Foundation could store in our kitchens, and at Altamont they cannot. I don't think that that's a policy that we want to create. I don't think that that's equitable. It's not fair, and I don't agree with that.
I do have one.
That's use, that's not storage. I'm
not
talking
getting
storage, I'm
recorded.
talking leaving the sodas in
Oh.
there for
Right.
3 months. Or a
Oh,
month.
that's a horse, okay.
Hold on, if you're gonna talk, you gotta come up here so we get you on camera. And
You gotta be on camera, but that's.
And the
fine.
mi-
I'm
the mic
talking
is the
about
big thing.
So-
Storage, I'm not talking about use, I'm not talking about the ability to bring sodas in the morning of an event so
Right.
that you can use them that night of an event. I'm
It's
talking about,
storage,
okay,
correct.
our event's over, we're gonna have an event in 6 weeks, we'll just leave this stuff here. We can't allow that at some facilities and not at others, it's not reasonable.
But I would need to ask Bernie if you could come up. Would there be any issues within the laws and regulations that you have to follow for safe serve and all of that other stuff that you have to keep in your mind with an organization bringing something in, some stuff in, and using your refrigerator that day?
So, with my experience in the past, day usage, especially for Carnival, I have no issues because it's mostly soda and water and candy. Occasionally, it's hamburgers and hot dogs, and I advise them when they go to actually mark. I have my kitchen staff mark where they can put their stuff because raw meats have to be on the bottom shelf. So, I have them mark that.
And that can all be addressed through the application process, right?
Absolutely, that can be part of that. Now, to what Ms. Hendricks referred to for her sales for her snack shack, it's a consideration that during the limited time that she sells, her drinks need to be cold, so that could be that temporary storing.
Day use.
So you're using that for the amount of time because we don't have volleyball or basketball the entire year, so during those sales, then the usage is fine. That's for temporary storage, but
You
not
don't even have
permanent.
them every day when it is that season, volleyball's once a week, right?
Correct. So, but she's gonna keep it there for several weeks
On a
while the volleyball
day by-
season is.
They can do it on a day by day.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm.
Exactly, bring it in the morning and let stuff
It will
get
fit
cold.
within- It will fit within the
Okay.
policy.
So I was thinking that this was resolving the ASB issues, and Kelly Hendricks is shaking her head. Can I ask what the residual issue, because I thought it resolved the issue.
No, it doesn't resolve the issue. They want storage. And
For how much time?
Well, but see, that's the problem, we can't
it's
start
not,
getting into
right, we
how
can't
much
get,
time.
all right, well, and that's, right, and that kind of.
So we're going to
what's-
add,
With the policy, at least what's before the board, the question is, are we allowing storage? Are we allowing storage? And then I had one more question for you. So
Okay.
are we allowing storage? I guess that's the question. And I would say no, based on what's been presented in the recommendation by Food Services.
I think we need to have language in there that says, no, except for the day of.
Temporary, which needs to be in the application,
I'm gonna
as
pose-
stated per the application.
I'm gonna pose another issue to you. I'm sorry.
Oh, let's get it done now.
The school's doing a cookie dough sale. They need the freezer to store their cookie dough while people come and pick it up. It takes several days for people to come and pick up their things. They'd like to use it in my freezer. I don't have an issue with that.
Because it doesn't contradict your USDA requirement.
As long as, okay, so USDA says that two people or two entities are allowed to have access to my food, one of them being food service, designated food service personnel, and it states security. I'm gonna deem that an administrator because you don't have security at your K-8s. The principal can then allow them entrance into the freezer to get said cookie dough.
And that's what the education code states?
That's the USDA. I have to
So-
certify that those two people are the only people that have access to the kitchen.
But again, that would be a temporary use.
Right.
It
And
is
it
a
would be
temporary
something that could
use.
be addressed.
Correct, and
as a
it's the
facilities-
school.
Prior, it could be done prior to the facility use committee?
Correct.
Okay,
And that's what
we'll-
I'm
we'll do
saying.
that.
Those kinds of things, I don't think there should be an issue. Okay.
And as far as ASB, that's just as far as ASB is concerned, that's just, I think it's gonna be an ongoing discussion that we have, but we need to come up with an answer right now, so.
Well, ASB for me doesn't store too much. It's usually the foundations that have the most storage in my facilities.
Yeah, I don't think we're in a position right now to start getting specific.
If you'd like me to come to your next committee meeting, if
Yeah,
you
let's
could let
talk.
me know, I
Let's
would
do
be
that.
more than
We
happy
will.
to do that.
And then the last question I had was, there's a crab feed
Yes.
in the works. And it was mentioned that there may need to be a deep clean following the event.
Correct.
Okay.
because shellfish is a huge allergen.
Is there an additional charge for that?
So this goes back to what are you having my people do and what are we charging? If there's a single person who's working that day, my staff will be instructed on how to have the volunteers do the deep cleaning. I think that's probably the best way to have it work. It's not a difficult task. It's literally, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go back and say, yes, there's going to be an additional fee of the additional towels that are used because I'm going to have to do an initial clean with certain towels, put those away, and use fresh towels to do a secondary clean. So they will have to pay for that. It's going to boil down to $10 at the most.
Okay.
Sounds like a good thing for the facilities committee to further do.
My only, yes, okay, let's do it that way. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know when your next meeting is, let me know.
We're gonna have to do it soon now, because that's coming up, so, yes,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, are we good? The question that I posed to the board, are we going to approve this now, or are we gonna bring it back?
I would suggest we approve it. I move that we approve the update of the facilities use handbook as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Sorry.
Motion passes. Item F, consider approval of the educational specifications for the K-8 Peter Hansen Elementary School.
So very quickly, this is a CDE report. It's been long existing. It was updated to give a program overview of what's currently going on in our district. It ties the philosophy of our district to the building of buildings. This one ties to the Hansen ideas, not building requirements, but just big ideas that are submitted to the CDE as part of the approval process.
I realize that it's not our document, but on page 249, elementary is spelled wrong.
I saw that.
And while it may not be our document, this document needs to be overhauled. There are a couple of things in here that are mentioned, like our 13 schools, which isn't going to happen anymore. And not for naught, and this is just me because I'm like PASA a little bit weird. On page 2 of the policy, page 248 of the book, 7% are classified as AFDC. I don't believe that's recognized by the state anymore. AFDC doesn't exist. It's CalWorks, and it's been CalWorks for about 15 years. So
It was testing to see if you knew
We might
that.
want to take a look at some of these things and talk about, just making sure it's up to date on it. And again, I don't know who
Free and
created it.
reduced lunch is what we use for everything else.
It is, really, but it's not ours, right?
But that's what we need, yeah.
That's what that is.
Right,
That is.
yeah.
We can sorry, I'm gonna get the mouth working. This is, technically it's ours because we worked on it, but this is a document that went to the state a long time ago for schools long since built. And it was handed up, and it was like things that had not been talked about in a long time, so it was updated. So we can fine tooth comb it again. But this is literally for us and not serving we have to fix it because we do good work, but it's not gonna screw up our process.
Taking that into account, is there a motion?
I move we approve the educational specifications for Peter Hansen Elementary School.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item G, consider approval of substitute teacher rate change effective 12/16/14. Staff report?
In order to keep up with our competitors in the very limited pool of substitute teachers, we are recommending to the board that we up the rates for our substitute teachers because other people in the surrounding areas have beat us to the punch.
Will the pay rate increase when will it be effective?
We would put it into play right away.
Would it be retroactive to the beginning of the school year? It's prospective.
Correct.
Okay. It looks to me like the accrued annual days, the very first bucket should be 0 to, if I'm understanding it right, the first bucket should be 0 to 16 because we're basing it based on their last year's hours, right? And so if they just start this year, their last year's hours are 0.
Dr. Gill, why don't you step up here and answer that question? You put that together.
Basing it on last year's? Didn't see that.
Are you referring to the table
Yeah, the accrued annual days worked 1 to 16. If it's based on last year's hours, then their last year's hours are 0. They're not even on this table. So I think it would be 0 to 16. That's just, I'm I'm pretty sure I'm right, so.
Technically, that would be correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the next one is it 0 to 15, and the next one is 16 to 25?
It should be 0 to 15, yes.
Okay. Okay. And then the last question that I have is the rate of pay for each year is based on the actual number of accrued days from the previous year. If a substitute worked 4 days during 14-15, the rate of pay for the 15-16 year would begin at 4 days. So my question is, does your hours for the previous year determine your entire your entire pay for the coming year, or does it graduate as you go?
I'm trying to understand your question. Could you?
Basically what he's saying is, so you started at 4. If we get a teacher who comes in and works 12 days, on the 12th day she'll hit 16. Did they get the higher rate of pay now, or is it totally based on you worked?
Prior year.
You worked 15. You worked 14 days last year. You're stuck at the 120 no matter how many days you sub for us for the next.
So you don't get your raise
You
until.
jump categories during
Yes,
the school year.
yes, they do.
Okay.
So that happens now also.
Okay,
Yes.
and I didn't know that. It's like the rate of pay for each year is based on the actual number of accrued days from the previous year. I think what it means is the beginning rate of pay
Correct.
for
So
each year.
what was happening currently was, if a substitute works, let's say 91 days this school year, next year they start with day 1 again. So what we're saying now, so if somebody worked and let's say for 91 days and they were making $160, with our current policy that we have right now, subs go back to 0 day next school year. They go to 120 and then make their way up.
It's a good idea.
What we are saying is, going with other school districts, what everybody else is doing, so if somebody worked for 90 days this school year, next year they can start with 91st day, which is at 160, instead of going back to 120.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand the policy. I just.
We're trying to recruit them to stay and work with us.
I think what he's trying to say, though, is that the language doesn't clearly indicate that there will be an accrual for the current year. It basically says in here, each year is based on the previous year. If you don't mention that there's a step, and basically they can move column during the school year, isn't really
We can
clarified
add that
in here.
sentence
We need
in
to
there.
add something
Sure.
to indicate that, as they hit the steps during the current year, they move through the columns.
Yeah,
Right?
just the word starting point or starting rate.
The beginning rate, right?
Yeah.
That's what he's saying, just that's the beginning rate,
And then it goes from there. Yeah.
And as Colin pointed out, would start, begin, doesn't,
Right.
there's something wrong there.
We can
I
add-
do
we can
have
make that
another
change.
idea. Do we, and I didn't read it carefully to see if it is, it's just this one page. One of the things that I've done in the past is I had a rate for a teacher that was subbing in a vacancy because they are doing more work, as we know, than a day-to-day sub. So you hire Susie Q because you haven't hired a third grade teacher yet. And she's doing the planning, the grading, the communication with the parents. Do we have a separate rate, or should we have a separate rate for a teacher who's filling in for a vacancy?
We do have that
That's
as the last
long-term
paragraph.
positions.
Last paragraph, that's
Long-term
the long-term substitute. If somebody works in a long-term substitute position for 10 days,
Well, that's my exact point. If in a vacancy, I always started the sub at the higher rate because they're doing that amount of work from day 1. You're going to give a sub who's doing all of that $120. I wouldn't do
for
it.
first 10 days.
Yeah, but
And a vacancy is different.
I see what she's saying.
Yeah.
It is. You're talking about this teacher is going to spend 2 weeks working at what is going to be bargain-based rates for
Yeah.
a full-time gig. The intent of a sub rate is you're not doing all the planning, all the preparation, all that stuff. You're coming in
Correct.
to help fill in some of the stuff that can't be done. But all that background stuff, I mean, I'm going to agree. I think it's a reasonable thing we need to talk about at a future meeting to say, hey, if you're going to be in a vacancy, that's not a substitute.
It's a
We should come up
totally
with a
different animal. Yeah.
classification for that as we can.
Because if the vacancy is only for 2 weeks, that person's gonna get stuck at $120 and they've done a lot more work than the regular day-to-day sub.
I interpreted the long-term positions paragraph differently, and so maybe I'm wrong. I looked at that and said, oh, if you know this teacher's going to be gone for more than 10 days, you're going to assign a sub for that 11-day series, and they get $190 for that. That's the way I was interpreting
So typically what happens is this. Whenever we have a vacant position, such as on maternity leaves or any vacant position in the beginning of the school year, we test a sub we typically place them for 2, unless a teacher has requested somebody because they know them personally, that's a different story. Usually we test a sub in that classroom for 2 weeks. If things go really well for 2 weeks, because everybody, the way they work with the kids is different. If things go really well, we say to them, okay, we can have you work in this position for this long. And depending on their credentials, sometimes we can only do 30 days. Sometimes if they have a credential, we can do longer term. And if all of that happens based on this new recommendation, because currently they don't get paid much. And so what we are recommending is much higher pay as compared to what they're being paid currently. Is for first 2 weeks, we test them to see if things are going well. Also the first two weeks, if it's a new position where, if it's a vacant position or anything like that, either the teacher who goes on a maternity leave plans the lesson for first couple of weeks, or the administration works with that person, because we do not expect the substitute to do every single thing by themselves. That's just not a possible expectations for them to do. That's what we are for testing purposes, for making sure it's a workable situation, and only then we assign a position to somebody long term. Because we don't want to assign a position to somebody for a year or 6 months, and then we find out this person is not working out.
I would just say that under the circumstances you mentioned, that may be good and fine, but we're talking about a growing school district, as we've mentioned, and if in January we need to open up a 3rd grade classroom, and we can't find a full-time person, so we have to hire a sub, and it turns out we don't have to hire that sub for 2 weeks, but they are doing all of the work and all of the planning and the meeting with the other 3rd grade teachers, and they're getting $120 a day. I'm not interested. I'm like you. I'm not interested in that job. As a substitute teacher, you've expanded way beyond what I would do in any other school district. I do think
most probably they're correct.
I would just say I think we need to be looking to be as competitive as we can in that field, because we have that specific problem more than most school districts, that we're expanding and growing, and we've had that happen on a number of occasions. We should be trying to encourage teachers, because also, not for nothing, that's a great way to find great
So what I hear is a new classification, a term for those type of particular situations where we pay a higher rate.
Well, I would say just, a teacher filling in for a vacancy starts at maybe the 2nd column or the 3rd column. And then, so they're taking, so you have a sub that's fully credentialed, okay? So you don't have to worry about the 30 days. And somebody's going on maternity leave. And I'm going to take that. I would love to work there for the 3 months that this teacher is going to be out. The first 10 days, I'm getting paid $120 a day.
Depends on if they didn't work. Based on this, I mean, we are open
I'm
to
new to the district.
Correct.
I retired a year ago, and I'm willing to do this for you. And for the first 10 days, I'm going to make $120.
Based on this, that's correct.
Back to school, I have
But
to
we
be
are open
parent
to your recommendations on that.
I misinterpreted that sentence.
Yeah.
So would it be all right, Mr. President, if we went with the recommendations that work and then bring back this second piece, which is the scenarios that were laid out? Only because we'd like to up the pay as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a motion for that?
I will move that we approve the sub rate as presented, contingent on a future agenda item for paying subs for vacancies.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And one absent. Sorry.
sorry.
No, you got it. Real quick, before we go on to the next item, I have to make mention, we actually have a board policy that says we have to finish meetings by 10:30. And if we don't, the board, we have to actually formalize that we take action to move it later, so.
I will move that we continue with the agenda.
And we have to articulate what time, no later than.
Oh, I don't know.
Does this include closed session?
No.
Are we certain we won't get through the,
I'm not certain, but,
How far are we?
well, we can hold off. I'll tell you what, we'll come back to that.
Yeah,
But
come back
just-
to that
I want to make mention of that. We'll move on.
10:29.
We have a presentation, don't we?
Thank you, Mr. President.
I thought-
Item H, consider approval of Mountain House High School furniture purchase from Keller Group in the not-to-exceed amount of $145,200. Staff report?
So Alvina can talk about the details, but the new wing is opening up, and we're piecemealing out how many classrooms.
Yes, this is for 10 classrooms. This is for the 3 science labs and the culinary arts, and of course, we need to think about the computers that also need to go into that wing. My request is to at least approve this up, not to exceed. I know that Mr. Faubert had mentioned not ordering the staff furniture possibly right now, but at least if I've got your approval a few months down the road, we can go ahead and place that order. And we did get a phone call. We have over 1 million square feet of developer fees that will be coming in. I was hoping today, maybe tomorrow, if it's not too weathered out there, but this purchase will come from those fees.
I move we approve the high school furniture purchase not to exceed $145,200.
second?
Second.
Beat ya.
Pombo got it.
You're first.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item I, consider approval of Governing Board Resolution 141505, approving the adoption of disclosure policies and procedures. Bless you. Staff report?
This is simply a cleanup action item for a omission found by the consultant that we work with, Chris Lynch.
I move we approve Governing Board Resolution 141505.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
On page 344, there was a recommendation of the consultant was that we consult bond counsel as to the materiality of the omission and whether the school district should self-report to the SEC. Has that been?
Yes, it has been done. In fact, he contacted me first, and we went through the whole report before
Okay.
in fact, bond counsel
I assumed
provided
so,
the
but I didn't.
resolution.
Okay, I assume so, but I didn't actually see it in there. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Roll call?
Matthew Balzerini.
Aye.
Colin Clements.
Aye.
Sharon Lampel.
Aye.
Shane Nielsen.
Aye.
David Pombo.
Aye.
Information discussion items. Item A, first reading of updated board policy and administrative regulation. Staff report?
None. Oh, I'm sorry. I had a moment. This is a CSBA language cleanup. It was like, so the tobacco-free policy is a cleanup for CSBA, and it's the electronic cigarettes.
Oh, okay, adding that. Any discussion? See it next month?
Yes.
Okay. Item B, revision to the CWA expulsion process.
So very simply, Dr. Gill worked very hard on the CWA document that would run our expulsion processes. We had a situation where it was put to test earlier this year. A discussion came about what hearings results would go to the board. So we are recommending that we add a second or an initial later before an expulsion goes to hearing called stipulated agreement. It's an administrative choice where it's basically an official last chance, and if a stipulated agreement student violates that agreement, they go immediately into expulsion. If a recommendation goes to hearing, 2 results could happen. Result number 1 could be the panel recommends to the board a suspended expulsion or an expulsion out of the district for a year. Both the suspended recommendation and the official recommendation for expulsion would go to the board for their consultation and approval. We are adding that layer. We don't have a lot of expulsions here, but we thought that would be a cleaner way to run the child welfare and attendance program.
It probably is, and it's a sign we're getting bigger, but man, I missed being that first layer, so, but I guess.
Who's going to be on this panel?
So in an expulsion panel, it'll be made up of administrators and the like. Someone oversees it and runs the meeting, facilitates it. You have the expulsion student, their family representatives, whatever, on one side. You have the panel on the other, and the presenter who reads out the documents of the charges and all the evidence that would lead to the recommendation for an expulsion. That's typical of every school district, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
when I was in San Francisco, that was something that we, Okay, I'm sorry, I failed with item A. There's two parts, I missed the second part completely. Board policy 3452, the student activity funds.
I thought we had to pass a time on extending the meeting.
We're seeing we can get it done by 10:30.
Okay.
10:30, so we can see if we can try and sneak it in. Oh, I'm sorry, I went out of order. Sorry about that.
So this is where we were bringing forward language to address the hard sell.
Yes, I saw.
And it's highlighted and underlined in the board policy.
Are there any questions on that from the board? Okay. Item C, Challenge Day, grades 7 through 12 anti-bullying program. Thanks, Ben, sorry.
I'm here anyway.
Just for that, he's going to do
You
an
can
11-minute
apologize to Mrs.
presentation.
Friesen when she comes in.
And I haven't had dinner.
I'm going to introduce our counselor. Why don't you come on, not Mrs. Friesen. Karen Friesen is our counselor here at Mountain House High School. She has been working with us on a number of different things, one particularly being bullying and the issues with bullying. And both Mrs. Friesen and I have worked together before in other districts, and Challenge Day is something that both of us have done separately in districts outside of Lammersville. And we're looking to bring it here to address some of the issues of bullying, and Mrs. Friesen is going to address some of the issues that we've seen here in the district.
Good evening. Just want to tell you guys a little bit about what Challenge Day is and why I think that it would really benefit us here. So we'll see if we can make this clicker work. So Challenge Day is a program, and they're designed with the vision for every child to live in a world where they feel safe, loved, and celebrated. And I think that we all want that for the students in our district. It was created back in 1987 as a response to bullying and increasing school violence and declining academic success. So it really focuses on the root causes and prevention of bullying. And it's a powerful day-long experiential workshop, and students, teachers, parents, other adults such as district leadership or community members can also participate in this day. And it's designed to improve the school climate, reduce the emotional stress of the students, positively influence student attendance and achievement, and strengthen positive relationships both between students and among students and staff, parents, etc. And it wants to reduce bullying, conflict, and student disciplinary actions overall. So why do we need it here in Lammersville? At the beginning of the year, we administered a school-wide survey to our Mountain House students, just asking how many had been victims of bullying or perpetrators of bullying, and we got a response that around 35% have been affected. So that's over a third of our students who are dealing with this issue. And the students and staff, at least at the high school site, are really excited to create a positive school culture in our first year and build that foundation to carry it on forward. So who participates in Challenge Day? It can be up to 100 students, and they really are focused on getting a cross-section of the different cliques and social groups in the high school so that leaders from each of those groups can bring that message back and disseminate it to the whole school. And then up to 25 adults, including school faculty and staff, parents, and community members. And 7th and 8th grade ambassadors from each elementary school, we would love to have them join us for Challenge Day and bring that message back to start that moving throughout the district. This program costs are included. It provides the full day program, and it provides training and setup, as well as 2 trained leaders, and the fee for the Challenge Day is $3,300. To maximize the efficacy of the day, we would also need funds for 8 full-day substitute teachers. That allows our faculty leadership to participate in the day. The benefits that Challenge Day could bring us. Well, after participating in Challenge Day, their statistics show that 90% of students, they report being more aware of the effects of bullying, accepting and supporting of other students, understanding of other people's experiences. They're more aware that their actions affect others, and they're more likely to help others. So that's a huge percentage of students who participate in this program that feel that they benefit long-term. And I've seen that in my personal experience with this day in past districts, and I would really love to bring it to Lammersville. Thank you.
What is it? What's the program?
The program is called Challenge Day.
But what do you, how,
What does it look like?
what is,
Okay,
yeah, we just need to know
Let me give you a
exactly
picture
kind
of what that day is like. So they send us 2 trained leaders who are very used to working with youth. They pump up the crowd, right? So they get the students and the staff members, they do some full group activities, icebreaker type of activities to get everyone comfortable with knowing each other. And then eventually they break them up into small groups of students, like 4 to 6 students to 1 or 2 adult leaders. And within their small groups, they start really discussing some of the things that they've experienced within their lives, whether that's bullying issues, maybe some of the hardships that they've been through, and that leads them to getting a compassion. And they do a lot of full group activities, such as, cross this line if you've experienced this or that, so that they can see that everyone is going through their own struggle. And then they also make it fun. They alternate between the more in-depth bonding activities and then sharing some statistics and information about bullying and school violence, and then doing the fun icebreaker activities.
I think the other thing, just before you, the other thing that's really important to note is during a Challenge Day, a lot of times bullying programs will focus on bulliers and how we're not going to let bulliers do this and we're not going to let them do that. Challenge Day actually helps the bulliers to realize and verbalize what they have done, and they realize how it's impacted other people. And so it's a little bit different in that we're not just attacking bullying, but the bulliers become aware of what they're doing, and then when they leave, they take that realization with them back to their groups who might be doing that on campus, and they help their friends become aware of what the consequences that their actions have caused.
In fact, Challenge Day, as part of the package, provides a year-long curriculum for a club that students can join after that day to carry that change forward in their schools. And in my past experience, I've seen both bullies and victims join that club and carry on that positive change.
So successful programs that I've seen, and I've never experienced this Challenge Day specifically, but they have a specific language that the participants wind up using that permeates everything they do in that school. Does this have this? Because I've seen teachers walking down the hall, look at a kid, say one word, and the kid knows exactly what it is. It could have been a reminder or something fabulous. I saw you just help that other kid, but just that one word, and it meant something to them. And it permeated the entire school atmosphere. It was very effective. So there's something that the kids walk away that they
Definitely.
have this
One of their
language.
catchphrases is "Be the change," based on the "Be the change you wish to see in the world" quote, and that has been a really common way to carry that forward. I'll hear kids reminding each other, "Be the change," and carry that inspiration forward.
And with our advisory program, where we have once a week that we're meeting with kids, we have the opportunity to carry it forward. After those kids have done that and create a club, then those kids can plan activities for whole school to do during advisory. You know, they can even work with our video productions team to create public service announcements and, you know, small lessons that can be done during that advisory time so that we can carry forward that language and make it really be school-wide culture and hopefully district-wide culture as we move forward.
Well, I look forward to it. You know, I don't know if you know, I was a police officer for 12 years. 2 years I worked on a high school campus as a school resource officer, so something that's near and dear to my heart, and I would absolutely love to be there to see it in action.
Please join us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay in getting you up here. We just need to reach consensus. Can we extend the meeting to 10:45?
I move we extend the meeting to 10:45.
I don't know, we necessarily need to vote. We just need to reach consensus. That's what's on action.
I'm all right with 10:45.
Okay, we'll continue on until 10:45.
I just want to piggyback on that presentation for a moment. I understand that the district no longer does Rachel's Challenge, and I would like it to be placed on a future agenda to talk about some sort of, and whether Rachel's Challenge was good or something else is better, I don't know. But put it on a future agenda to discuss anti-bullying, or I think, maybe more importantly, teaching our students compassion and empathy and those kind of things, you know, getting into understanding how our actions affect other people.
I thought that's what the character counts was supposed to do.
Well, did we stop doing Rachel's? Or was
Rachel's Challenge was like a one-shot deal, but character counts as
My understanding is it was done 1 year, there was a lot of energy behind it, and then it faded out the next year.
I believe we were doing both Rachel's Challenge and
I thought
character
Rachel's Challenge was
counts
at least for a few
concurrently.
years, because I remember seeing different banners at Wickland over the last few years for it. So maybe it was just something that they were doing individually. Yeah, so
But we still have the curriculum with the language, and that's consistent across the schools.
I don't think we need to discuss it any further than to say we definitely need to, I'm agreeing with Mr. Pombo to say I would love to see more
anti-bullying.
And specifically, to build on what they said, it's gotta be the entire school district that's building this culture, because if we send them to the high school and we haven't started them with that foundation, it's gonna take that much longer to get a roll, and we need to start as early as possible with this. So I just wanna agree with Dave and say, please, we need to discuss this further.
Now, is this Challenge Day, is it something that's specific to the high school age students?
7 through 12.
7 through 12, okay.
But only their leaders come, right? So we need to do something to build on that, to get it down lower.
something K-8
Yes.
based.
Okay, what's that?
We need to know when Challenge Day is, because basically every board member wants to
Yeah.
know. So
Right.
Make sure you let us know.
Live scan services.
So we had a new policy that we put forward, and in the communication to the community, the timeline that was provided was requested in many different ways to be extended, so we did. But one of the services that came forward in all those communications was that do we want to provide a live scan opportunity in a district facility or in a community facility through a service provider? And one specific community member put themselves forward, and I put it on here for the board to discuss whether we want to get into that. We extended the timeline, and as a result, I think people can resolve it, but it's something we need to address.
I think it's a good idea. I think we should offer it once, a one-shot deal, to have a mobile fingerprint service come in. I also know that provider is willing to give us a reduced rate, at which the volunteers will be paying. So it will soften up the cost of the fingerprinting a little bit for the volunteers. I think a one-shot deal, just to say, you know, for your convenience, we're trying to help. There's been a lot of pushback on the volunteer fingerprinting, and I'm sure we've all fielded questions and explanations, and
Well, while I agree what has transpired is unfortunate, and I do, I do strive to help the community, I think that is a bad idea. This is an individual that's going to make a profit, and we're going to let them come in and use our facilities. That's a gift of public funds. Now, if they want to, reserve the space and go through the process of a facility, that we are upholding everybody else to do, that's one thing. I appreciate the fact that, that they're willing to give a discount to the district, but if there's other organizations that are out there that don't know that they could have had that business, I mean, this is a profitable company. So I think we need to be very careful. We're a government organization, and by allowing them to come in, that's a gift of public funds.
I think it's a service that we're offering to our volunteers to make it convenient for them.
I caution the board. I think that, you need to be careful. If there's another organization out there that didn't have the opportunity to go through, to be given this process, is that appropriate?
Well, they could go through the facilities use thing. I mean, any kind of approval if it's during working hours. They could also use the CSD building.
Whom are you referring to? This individual that wants to do this?
Yeah.
I think that if, I think they need to go through the process. I think that they need to, I just worry that, it's incumbent upon the volunteers to get their fingerprints. I'm all for helping them out as much as we can, but if we start making exceptions,
It's not an exception. We're losing volunteers. And we have to.
That has nothing to do with.
Can I finish?
Yes.
Thank you. We're losing volunteers because we have to do this. It is what it is. We can't break the law. But maybe we'll lose some fewer volunteers if we make the fingerprinting a little bit more convenient for them. That's all I'm saying.
Right. And the point that I'm trying to make is we can't break the law. We can't allow an organization who's a profit-making organization to come in and set up shop and charge people for a service that, one, hasn't gone through any sort of bid process, hasn't been advertised, and is using a facility that any other organization would be charged to do. I believe that's a gift of public funds. So it's a concern, because I think it is a legal concern that the district should be worried about.
And would there be legal concerns if it was set up in a facility that wasn't ours and we just let people know that it was out there?
I would not have a problem with that.
Because I was told they could use the CSD building.
Okay, if that's the case, I mean,
I want to be cautious. I'm not familiar with just allowing them to come in would be considered a gift of,
take that on? Cool.
I would say we
funds.
could get the legality issue resolved fairly quickly if that was a concern, and maybe we should just, it wouldn't hurt to make a phone call. And I'm going to be very careful about what I talk, because if the person who did this is the person I think it is, I'm not going to make a recommendation one way or the other about it, just to say that, I see both sides of this. I don't know that it's necessarily a gift of public funds as much as it is. I would worry that you are setting a precedent for some things in the future, but I'd also say we have extenuating circumstances here. We kind of dropped the bomb on some folks, and in response to that, we can say we did what we could to try to help whoever that might be. And if it would assuage your concerns to offer up to other people to do it and put it through a bid process, but by that time,
I understand.
But it's not a bid. We're not paying them.
I know, but what
Yeah.
he's saying is
We're not,
we
but
were
they're making
a public announcement, offering
No, I
up
get
to
it, I
things,
get
that
it.
kind of stuff. We run out of time, so unless we want to extend that time frame even more,
No.
I don't. I
Yeah.
want to get this done right away.
Well, and I'm with you. I mean, I agree.
Let's get an answer to whether or not it is a legal concern, and if council agrees with Mr. Balzerini that it is a legal concern, then that would pretty much end it for me as well.
But if they could use the CSD building, it would just be like, we tell them where they can go for fingerprinting. Here's your options in the area, we give them that information, it would be the same.
And I agree. I don't think
Yeah.
that's an issue at all. We spent hours and hours going through facility use handbook trying to hold organizations to certain standards, and now to say, oh yeah, come on in.
I have a proposal for the facility use committee for an exception.
So just so I get clarity on the direction, if there's a legal concern, that we would support it by telling people, go to the CSD on X night because you have less fees for that.
Well, we have to find out if that person can actually do that.
Right, and I think we also need to say that not just one, here are multiple places that you can go.
Correct.
That being one of them.
Yeah.
If there is no legal concern, then the person that's offered the service can be communicated with to say, fill out the facilities use, and if you want to provide this service, there's a process to go through. Am I hearing you correctly?
I concur with that.
I only see one issue with that, and that is the 30-day
Application fee.
application timeline, because that will.
You guys can wait.
I would also say that most likely we're not going to get a discounted rate if we're going to charge them for the facilities. And I would just want to clarify that with them, that if that's the case, and I wouldn't blame them for that. You know, I mean, if they're going to have to pay to use the facilities, you know, that's just, again, it's not my problem, it's their problem. You know, it's not my business, it's their business. But just that would probably change, if I were in running a business, it would change my offer too if I had to pay $80 an hour or something.
Well, and
I don't know what the fee would be.
I appreciate them even offering a discount. I think it's great, but at the same time, we have a responsibility to make sure that, yeah, I mean, I think we need to be careful.
So I'll take care of the legal
If it can work,
question.
that's fine.
I'll
If
communicate
not,
with the president about what those outcomes are, and then I'll follow the direction of the board. Okay.
Okay, item E, future board workshop.
It was suggested on different occasions that we discuss a future board workshop to review some board policy, roles and responsibilities, and the like. We had done an exercise last year around this time, so I wanted to bring that forward and get direction from the board.
Just to clarify, we did a workshop last year, and we are still in possession of whatever we used for that workshop. So if we wanted to do another workshop, we would not need to bring in facilitators or anything. We could just.
Yeah. I feel confident that based on the last one, that the superintendent could definitely facilitate that. Based on the interest of time, how about I think we could table this until next month, and we can try and look at our calendars then.
Yeah.
That's a struggle.
That's fine.
Okay, calendar. December 14th through 16th is the CSB Annual Education Conference. I'll be going ahead of time for delegate assembly, and then I think all of us except for Shane will be there.
Sorry,
December 22nd through January 2nd is winter break. The district facilities are closed. Monday, January 5th is a staff development day, no school for students. And our next board meeting is on January 7th.
So the district office is completely closed the 22nd through the 2nd?
We're closed for business. There will be people here who probably come in to catch up on some work.
I was going to say congratulations if you said
So was
yes.
And with that, I move we adjourn to closed session.
I have a quick question, though, that I think it may be, I'd like to ask it with the public here. Do we have any safety systems ready to roll for tomorrow? 3/4 of the Bay Area have closed their school districts, and in the hours that we've been sitting here, probably more. I didn't mind going to 10:45 because I don't have to go to work tomorrow. San Francisco's closed, Oakland is closed, Castro Valley.
We've been
Alameda,
monitoring this all day,
Berkeley,
and
yeah.
the last communication before the meeting started from the county is nobody's really closing in San Joaquin County. We've been discussing this, and
But emergency systems, in case there is flooding and stuff like that, are we prepared?
I mean, that's kind of an emergency responder's perspective. I think the big issue with the Bay Area schools is the wind. Everyone's concerned about the wires, and I can count on one hand how many times we've lost power out here. It's just with our
Okay,
wires
I
underground. I
just-
think we're pretty.
You know,
I'm not-
it took me 3 hours to drive from sheer panic to calm, so.
We shouldn't have any issues with down power lines.
Yeah,
or-
because there's nothing above ground right here.
Well, if those big power lines go down, we have bigger issues.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, and I mean, yeah, there's potential of flooding, but that's our neighbors next door. It's kind of their, yeah.
Okay.
And I would like to commend President Balzerini on his first stab at the presidency. He will learn to get through the agenda quicker in the future.
I feel like I'm back next door, you know?
So I will second Shane's motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, folks. Sorry it was so late.